On this episode of the Theologian's Table podcast, it's all about Halloween. Should Christians participate in it? Should Christians not participate in it? You'll have to hear the discussion and which one of us lands on what side. It's probably one of the best well-rounded discussions we've had to date, so we are excited for you guys to hear it. So, without further ado, let's get on with the show. Hello, everybody. This is the Theologian's Table podcast, right? Yes.
Yes. I just heard a sound. I wasn't sure.
It was my... I know why. It's my computer is connected to my phone, and so all the alerts that I get on my phone come through my computer.
Okay.
So we're back live again, back in the Theologian's Table podcast studios,
Yes.
aka Tim J's very nice basement, actually. One that I'm jealous of.
I love it.
It's finished.
It's finished basement. It's basically like a basement apartment.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
So we're back tonight, and tonight is going to be a Halloween episode.
Ooh,
right?
Yeah, man.
So,
Halloween themed episode. You should probably put in some
I'm gonna put in
music.
Bach's Toccata and Fugue, which is that organ. Do 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 do.
Yeah.
That's gonna be that one.
There's no rights on that?
There's no, because it's in the public domain because it's so old. It has to be like 100 years old.
Oh yeah.
To be in the public domain, and you can use it freely.
It's magnets.
I think it's the wind.
Well, it's the wind pushing the magnets to the door.
Oh, okay.
But it adds to the creepiness since we're doing a Halloween podcast.
It does, yeah. So usually when we do our little intros here, somehow we always end up talking about what's going on with me. But I want to focus on Tim J.
Oh, no.
Yeah, because you had family. You hosted your family, right?
Yeah.
So how did that go?
Man, it was great. My brother Adam and my mom came, and we did it up, man. We did all the fun fall cheesy stuff that everyone probably makes fun of me for behind my back.
No, I think fall's great.
I think it's great too. I just think the stigma is that like young women love fall stuff, or maybe just women in general. You know, and I'm like such a nerd. I invented a holiday called Fall Day.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Have I ever talked to you about that?
Not on the show.
Okay.
No.
So I'm trying to remember what year this was. I'm going to guess and say it's probably 2007. It's probably a couple years out of high school. And this one Saturday, I woke up in the morning and it was like still darkish. And I'm from Illinois, northern Illinois, so right on the border of Wisconsin. So like our falls are like great; they're really great. Obviously, you're from the New England area, so you know New England,
right? Yeah, and Minnesota too. So
yeah, for sure. The only problem is that they're so short because winter is like right behind.
It is.
You know, I haven't checked the weather back home, but I'm curious if it's
so in
snowing.
Minnesota. It just snowed like 2 days ago.
Oh, no, you can't do that in October, man.
Well, so the thing about Minnesota is in October, it snows every October, and every year people are surprised.
Yeah,
like, you know this happens every year.
That's like the definition of insanity,
right?
So yeah, I woke up and it was like I had the window open, and it was like I just like cold weather. But this was the moment where I realized how much I really love fall, because like you could just there's a crispness in the air.
Yeah.
And it just hit me that morning, and I was not working that Saturday, and it was like amazing. So I woke up and I made myself some breakfast. I think I maybe sat out. And at the moment I lived with my brother Jeremiah, and we lived right next to this park. This like really, really beautiful park called, I think it was Alpine Park. And so there's trees all around, grass. There's like a dam. You can walk up to the top of the dam and get this beautiful view. And I did. And I was just felt in such a good mood. I went for a run. And while I was going for a run, like, this sounds so funny, all the leaves were like rustling, and I could smell the leaves. And I like had a moment where I flipped out, and I was like, I love this. Yeah. And I was just sprinting. And then the rest of that day, I watched college football.
Mm-hmm.
It was great. And it was like, I can't remember who was playing. I'm a Michigan State fan, oddly enough. And they were playing somebody, Wisconsin maybe. And that was a good game. And then like the 3:30 games were on, and I got to watch some of those, but I also went back out to Alpine Park and would run again. And I think I went to a haunted house, oddly enough, that night. I wasn't living right then.
Okay.
And so I went to a haunted house, and it was like the perfect day. It was so perfect. And then like the next Saturday, I was like, I want to see if I can do this again. And I just got obsessed with it. And eventually I just said, I should do this like every year and just pick a day and not work on Saturday and watch college football, do cheesy fall stuff. And I loved it. And it's like every year, the more I realize how much I love this season. And so I've been doing it since then. So however long that is, 10 years, 10 plus years, 15 years, maybe.
Yeah. A long time.
But I love it, man. I love the season. So yeah, right now we're in the third week of October, and we've had an unusually cold fall here in North Georgia. It's fantastic.
It is. So I've lived here for 13 years, and this is the best fall I've ever experienced in Georgia. It is amazing.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And it hit in September, because like I had a hard year. When you said like I want to talk about you, I was like, I don't want to talk about how this summer has just been really difficult.
Oh, okay.
But it was just hot, and it was hard.
Yeah.
I was like losing vision.
Oof.
It was just difficult. I was like, man, why do I do this? Why do I keep doing this to myself, working in these hot days? And I was looking forward to it, but I knew in the back of my mind, September's going to come, and even though football will be on, it's still going to be hot. Mm-hmm. And so just kind of prep yourself, Tim. Don't get too excited that September's here. But oddly enough, like every morning I woke up to take my son to school, and it's really cold. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, this is going to slow down the Bermuda here. My mowing's going to slow down a little bit. And then it stayed cold. And then the next day was cold. And then it was like every night was cold. Every morning was cold. And then all of a sudden I showed up to these houses, and it's like, there's nothing to do. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I cannot believe this is happening right now. It normally takes another month.
Yes.
Before you really start experiencing that. So leaves are already changing.
Yeah.
It's great, man.
Yeah. My backyard is just all leaves right now.
It normally doesn't happen until November.
Yeah. That's true.
So specifically, I love it for that reason. So this is a very, very good season. So yeah, they were here. We went to Mercier Orchards, which we talked about that before.
Yeah, we did. And you asked me where I went, and I think it was definitely not Mercier Orchards.
Okay, I was going to say you would know it if it was,
right?
It's incredible.
From what I've seen in the pictures, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's great, and when we moved here, someone said that there's a good apple orchard in Blue Ridge, which is an hour and some change north of us, and someone said, oh yeah, you can buy these donuts, these apple cinnamon donuts. Okay, so back home we have this place called Edwards Apple Orchard.
Yep.
And it is the greatest apple orchard ever. And really what it is, it's probably just okay, but it's the donuts, man. The apple cinnamon, they make them there.
Okay.
So that if you say, let me get 2 donuts, they make them right there and they hand them to you, and they're hot. They're like hot and steaming, and you can get milk, you can get cider, hot chocolate with it, you can get some coffee, whatever you want. And they're like so moist that if you pick it up, they will start to like bend on the other side. Like it will break before it reaches your mouth. That's
that
how
sounds so good.
It is the most amazing thing. So the apple cider donuts at Mercier were the closest I've come to apple orchards. There's still nothing like Edwards in Illinois.
We had a place like that up in Minnesota. I think it was in Stillwater, Minnesota, where it was just like that. They sold the stuff there on site.
Yeah.
And they had a big store. I can't eat that stuff anymore. I don't know. Maybe I need to claim the blood of Jesus over my digestive system. But
yeah, man, go back to the healing podcast we did.
Yes.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to revisit that, man.
Yes, please.
Because I need. We interpret some stuff differently. Like there's like, it's like was it Agent Mulder from the X-Files, or maybe it's Scully.
Scully
They
was
just
the
say,
female.
yeah, where one of them says, "I want to believe," and so it's just. Anyways, not to get off subject.
No, it's funny you bring that up because I was thinking about that this morning.
Yeah, well, but whenever I have like an uncomfortable day with, for nobody who knows, I have IBS. So that's the one that they make fun of on TV for people flagellating, but that's not actually what happens. Okay. It mainly feels like your intestines are filled with concrete.
Oh,
so it's not good. Anyways, so there's lots of things that I can't eat anymore, and it includes everything, like from fruits and vegetables, certain ones of those, because they have these things in them called fructans or something that my digestive. This is TMI. I'm sorry, but that my digestive system just can't absorb right. Can't break them down or something. And there's other types of bacteria that are harmful to myself as well. So I've got to avoid those foods. But I've been learning that I have to also reintroduce them.
Yeah. So they're not foreign.
So they're not foreign. But the problem is like I've tried to do that and I still have issues. So they say like you got to repair your gut. And to do that, you need to drink straight chicken broth, boil a chicken, drink the broth and whatever stock for a week or so, and it repairs your gut somehow. And I'm like,
do you take this is like not theology, but do you take anything for gut health?
I do. I take a probiotic.
Okay.
Every other day. Because
what's the company that you take?
I don't know. It's something off Amazon.
Okay. I take a probiotic every day. And I normally don't take any vitamins or any of that stuff. But
me either.
What's that stuff called? I drink it every day.
Is it Metamucil?
No, it's like you have to buy it online, or you have to.
This is a middle-aged chat right now.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Maybe we can talk about this out there. Anyway, the more I take it, the more I understand how gut health actually affects everything. And I had some issues with my back because I was. This does sound like a middle-aged conversation. Yeah. I was stretching earlier this year, just getting into the habit of stretching every day.
Yes.
And when I did, I started to have all this pain in my back. And Plexus is the name of it.
Have you heard of Plexus? I've heard of it, but
it's great.
I've never had
sponsor.
But the Babylon Bee makes fun of Plexus. So can I get that?
They also make fun of Word of Faith people. So you got to take your licks where you can get them.
That's true.
What was I going to say? Yeah, but anyways, I started drinking it and like regularly and taking all the pills my wife tells me to take, and then the pain went away. I don't have any inflammation.
Yeah, like anymore. I think 70% of your immune system is in your gut, something crazy like that. So since I've been taking a probiotic, like I haven't really been sick in other ways. Like colds don't really hang on to me like they used to. Even like with the Rona, that the last 2 times I had it sounds so weird to say, but it was like a minor inconvenience.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was really only down and out for like 1 day.
Yeah.
But other people, anyways, but even like colds, I haven't had any stomach bugs.
Nice.
So, I mean, yeah, gut health is extremely important. But
yeah.
Is this a pharmaceutical commercial?
Yeah. Well, we're talking about donuts and how good those are.
Right.
Those apple cider ones. Man, those are good.
They are good. I cheat anyway. So
yeah. But I was gonna transition talking about something else. Anyway, it's fall.
Right.
Apple cider vinegar. No, that's the gummy I eat too.
Yeah.
Apple cider donuts are fantastic, and I love this time of year. Like I can't even say it enough. I love this time of year. I love October. I love. I was telling my son this morning how about the burr months. Those are my favorite. The burrs are my favorite. September, October, November, December, and every time one ends, there's always a little bit of sadness. But then you have to think like, okay, if anyone is a college football fan listening, it's like you look forward to September. You know, that's when it starts, when everything starts getting moving. And allegedly it's supposed to get colder. You know, most times it doesn't. But in October, when September's done, it's like you're so looking forward to October because all the good football games are in October. I don't know if you saw the one on Saturday. Tennessee beat Alabama.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, yes,
amazing game.
Yeah, my wife and her mom, you know, they had their viewing party at her house. So
and she's a Tennessee fan.
Oh yeah, yeah. Died in the wool Tennessee fan. So
well, that's the funny thing. I don't watch nearly as much football as I used to. Like since 2020, I've just been like, I'm done. But I've slowly been coming back, but I don't think I'll ever love it the way that I did. So it's just not that big of a deal to me. I do look at the schedule and I see, is there a good game happening this Saturday? And is it at a convenient time where I can watch maybe some of it? If you have kids, you can rarely watch football, you know?
That's correct. Yes.
So I've been, it's fine. That's okay. I'm not going to say, yeah, you guys go and play on your thing, and I'm going to sit here for 4 hours and watch a football game. I don't have that type of time. So, but it just happened to work out this Saturday where I was like, okay, I saw this game, I'm interested, and it just happened to be like the greatest 4 hours. It was insane, you know. And so periodically we went out and played football, we played catch and did other things, but I did get to watch it. So it's like October is great. October, if you're a sports fan, is the greatest month for sports. You know, college football's in full swing, NFL games going on.
Playoffs.
MLB is in postseason right now. I don't know who's who and don't care, but you know, if you're into baseball, that's happening right now.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure NBA is going to start up. I know NHL is.
Yeah, and they've been playing for a few weeks now. So
it's like all of the big sports like converge in October.
Yeah.
It's just cool, man. It's a great month.
Yep.
But anyway, so all of this talk of October gets me thinking about Halloween.
Right.
Yeah.
And how
or Satan's birthday if you're a young Aaron Johnson.
Oh yeah.
That's my wife used to think that when she was a little girl, she thought it was Satan's birthday.
Satan's birthday. Yeah, I know that when I was young, I couldn't celebrate Halloween until like the 3rd grade was when my parents finally caved. And actually it was the pastor's wife of the church that we were going to at the time who they celebrated. Like, well, when I say celebrate, you know, they let their kids dress up and go trick or treating.
Okay, we need to put a pin in that and come back. Okay, go ahead.
Wait, with what?
I was hoping to not stop you dead in your tracks.
Oh, okay.
But like that thought, I want to talk about that later.
Okay. Oh, later. Okay. Yes. So, anyways, so in the 3rd grade, like I remember kindergarten, like I don't even remember Halloween existing. Like that wasn't even on my radar. But when I went to public school, that in 1st and 2nd grade, you know, they would have Halloween parties. I couldn't dress up. I couldn't participate.
Did you want to?
Desperately.
Okay.
Desperately wanted to participate. Like, so when we did a good job on our classwork, like the teachers had stickers, right, that they could put on our work. Well, they had Halloween themed stickers in it. And, you know, they would bring my work back to me and it would have a great job, but it would be like of something Halloween related. And I'd have to go up and say, I can't celebrate Halloween. I can't have this sticker on my work.
Oh, you were a very honest little kid.
Yeah. And so they would take it off. And
probably thought you were Jehovah's Witness or something.
No, I mean, at that time, so this was, I don't know what really, what that area was like, if that area of St. Paul was religious or not, but I don't know if they thought it was weird or whatever. So, yeah, maybe they thought we were like something super strict, like Jehovah's Witness or something.
Yeah.
So, and then in the 3rd grade, that all sort of changed. So, and what was interesting is that it wasn't just a change with my family, because when a group of us, a group of families who had been in one really strict Pentecostal church, who everything was the devil. We left that church, and it was a big group of us, and we started going to a different church. So that was less strict and things like that. All of us, all of the families and kids started, being able to participate in that kind of stuff. So, where did you want to go from here?
Well, I like what you're saying right now, and I kind of want to hear more about what you remember about Halloween as a kid, and what your parents thought about it.
My parents, so even to this day, my mom does not anything that has to do with like dark spiritual stuff.
Okay,
which I think is great, because neither do I. So, but that when I was a kid, when we were doing this stuff, I was dressing up as like Zorro or a ninja or a pirate, and it never had anything to do with the occult. Participating in the occult. We didn't have Halloween parties. Or I didn't go to any Halloween parties or anything like that. Yeah. We didn't do haunted houses or anything. So it was just like a way to get together with friends and family and hang out together and, walk through the neighborhood and things like that. Yeah. So it wasn't, we stayed away from, I guess, what you could call the spiritual side of it, and we're more interested in the fellowship, I guess, that we could have.
Yeah. Okay.
And that didn't change as I got older. Even though like I became more aware of I always knew that there was, occult pagan stuff related with Halloween, but as I got older, my interest in that never increased. And so I was never, drawn to that sort of stuff. And I credit, my parents and going to church for that. Sure. So,
yeah. Okay. So every year I have these thoughts and have this conversation with somebody, whether it's just Aaron and I talking about it, randomly, if we catch a glimpse of the new latest horror movie that's out, that they show on network television, that's like frightening to a young child. They're just like, oh yeah, this is coming out, and we're like, here we go again. We got to do this. It just seems like I don't want to get ahead of myself. Anyway, so my childhood was this. We didn't celebrate Halloween. It was a big fat no. Not a chance, didn't dress up. And I don't know that I cared to.
Right.
There's never anything that I was like, oh man, I wish I could go trick-or-treating. I remember when I was young, I remember being at my grandma's house when she lived in Rockford, and they were doing a test. I kind of laugh about it now because I'm like, what are you doing this? But they were testing all of us. And I think deep down I felt like I was being tested.
Okay.
But my mom and somebody else, I won't, throw everybody under the bus here. But they were like, I think this year we're going to let you celebrate Halloween if you want to. And I was like, okay. And they were like, do you want to? And I was like, no. And they were like, yeah, why? And I was like, I think it's evil. I think it's wrong. And they're like, okay. All right, you can go back to playing, And they apparently did that with everybody.
That's very familiar because my church and my family did that too.
Okay, so
I remember it clear as day.
Did you pass the test?
Yes,
I passed because I was a really good kid. But it was. My mom felt very, very strongly against it and was like, "This is not something we do. This is wrong. This is evil. We don't celebrate Halloween." And she was very, very strong about it, and about magic, about sorcery, not just Halloween, about like she was against watching Fantasia.
Yes.
Because it had all sort of wizardry and
man,
that stuff. Lots of stuff. Go ahead.
When our family watched it, we had to close all the curtains in our house and shut the lights out.
Couldn't
and our parents like made us swear that we wouldn't tell anybody in our church that we were going to watch Fantasia because it had magic in it. So
was this a strict Pentecostal church you went to?
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha. And I heard someone on YouTube, I think he's a Calvinist, or he may lean that way. No, he's one of those, what is it? I guess it doesn't matter. Baptist. What is it? The Reformed Baptist?
So he's a Calvinist.
Okay, sure. But I heard him talking about that, about how they weren't even allowed to eat Lucky Charms for that reason. Like luck and magic.
Yeah.
Magically delicious. No Lucky Charms.
Right.
And I was kind of chuckling about that. And I was like, I wouldn't put that past, my mom at that time anyway. And so here's the thing. So I feel like everyone I've been wanting to do this Halloween episode, especially referring to like, what is the Christian perspective on Halloween? This is the big question that I ask every year. And I see all these differing opinions on Facebook every year about Halloween. What does the Bible say about it? What is all this? And I was like, man, we need to just do an episode. And so I found a YouTube video with Mike Winger.
Yeah.
And so if you're interested in it, just type in Mike Winger Halloween, and it's like 7 types of Halloween, or 7 reasons for not celebrating Halloween, or something like that.
Yeah. What I'll do is I'll link it in the show description, so y'all can watch that. And
it was good. And I was not planning on even starting from that place. I just wanted to hear. I'm like, oh, Mike Winger talks about Halloween. Cool. I'd love to hear it. And because we've talked about him before. I like him to some degree. I think he's great, but I also really disagree with him sharply on other things. So I thought, this is a good way to do it. So this is kind of what we're talking about here is, what should the Christian perspective be about Halloween? Because I feel strongly about it. And as much as I want to look back at my past and be like, oh, my mom, she was just so strict and, might as well have been Pentecostal holiness. I really respect the heck out of my mom for having discernment to see what's behind things a lot of times. What's the spirit behind a movie?
Yes.
What's the spirit behind something that is seemingly innocent? And I feel like she has really, really sharp spiritual discernment on this area, and many others. But and so I keep hearing all these believers talk about, oh, when I was a kid, we were strict and we didn't do any of that. I'm not that way now. And I'm always like, well, I am. So I am probably a stickler. If you're listening to this and you're wondering, well, where are you at? I don't celebrate Halloween. I never have. I never will. Our kids are not going to do anything Halloween. I have strong feelings about it, but I'm also going to, in this conversation, call myself out because I also do have some hypocritical things probably. Okay. I'm also not trying to sit here and call out Christians that do celebrate Halloween. I think I just want to have like a comprehensive conversation about why you should or shouldn't, or why do we do things. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about the history of it.
We can do that.
Like that. I mean, it's a little convoluted. I think Mike Winger makes a good point about the history of it.
It is
complicated.
One of the most convoluted histories of anything I have ever researched. Is worse than the date of Christmas.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. But I will say, even having, and I agree with you on that, I do think it's convoluted, but there is a very common origin in Ireland and Scotland.
Yep.
It always starts there. And any holiday that celebrated either Halloween or Dia de los Muertos. How do you say that? I can't.
Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead. We'll just call it that. Yeah. Day of the Dead in Central and South America. They're really all, and All Saints Day and Mischief Night, all of these things. They're all really kind of like every holiday around this time is centered around death. Yeah. And the dead. So anyway, where do I start from here? So that was my childhood. Okay. So it was like, this is off limits. But some of my earliest memories, actually, when I was going to public school, so we went to a Christian school for a while, and then after my 3rd grade, I went to public school, and that's a hard age to transition. What were you when you transitioned?
So I went to a Christian kindergarten, and then I went straight into public school for first through the rest of my, well, except for 7th and 8th grade. I went to a Lutheran school, which, you know, wasn't any better, I guess, as far as
any better than public.
Well, so as far as the behavior of the kids, it wasn't any better than, and what happened with their behavior, you know, might as well have been a public school.
Okay.
But we were taught, you know, very Lutheran things.
Sure. Yeah.
So
I wonder if a lot of people think that about Christian schools. I went to a few Christian schools, and I don't know if the behavior was worse. They were just better about covering things up.
Okay.
Which just shows me that people are people. You know, and people just know they're going to do what they want to do. I remember I would be at remember the restaurant Perkins? I don't know if that's around. Yes.
Oh, I miss
I used
Perkins
to go to Perkins
so
all the time, man. And ran into these two guys who went to the same school that I did. And I didn't know them. We were just talking, but we were sitting in the smoking section back when I used to smoke in restaurants. And and so they were like, yeah, we go to Christian Life. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And they were like, yeah, and they do tobacco testing. Because I went to Christian Life and they didn't do that. And they were like, yeah, they changed it. They now do drug testing, tobacco testing, alcohol, like whatever. And I was like, geez, okay. I didn't realize y'all were in a nunnery. It seems so strict. And I was like, so how are you able to get away with this? And they were like, we after a couple days, it's not in your system. So we just find ways around it.
Right.
And it just makes me like, yeah, I think that's how people are. You're going to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
If your parents are, what I used to think was cool and let you do whatever you want to do, you're going to do whatever you want to do. But if your parents are strict, you'll find very creative ways around it.
Oh, yeah.
You'll be miserable.
Yeah.
You know?
That's right.
But anyway, one of my earliest memories about Halloween in a very formative time. So that was 4th grade, probably 4th or 5th grade. I still feel the same way then about Halloween as I do now. And that's that I don't like it. I don't celebrate it. I just don't. But deep down, I like certain things about Halloween.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm not trying to justify this at all. Okay. I'm not. But it was a hard transition going from a Christian school to a public school at that age. Because I'm one week I'm taking the book of Timothy in my class, and everyone is a Christian. And then like the next year I'm in public school, and this guy I can't even say this on the podcast because it was so vulgar. My first day, he comes up to me and says something. It's still, I'm an adult and it's still super vulgar. And I was like, this is messed up. Where am I? And it was like me and some of my older brothers were talking. We were just kind of comparing notes about how this is not where Jesus lives.
Right. Yeah.
It was rough, man. It was a hard transition. And so everyone celebrated Halloween. And so where we lived, I walked to school, and it wasn't, too bad, a block or two. And it was the craziest thing to walk to school and to like, you see classmates walking, close across the street, behind you, in front of you, people you go to school with, you're all kind of converging in this block where the school meets. It was the craziest thing to be like morning and walking down the street and seeing people in full Halloween costume, because you get to wear your Halloween costumes to school.
Yeah.
And it was cool, and it was kind of creepy. It was like, this is weird. I think Scream was out at that point.
Okay.
And so I was seeing the Scream mask. I still think that Scream mask is like the scariest thing. And so seeing that thing, I was just like, this is wild. And everyone was dressed up, but nothing in me wanted to participate. I didn't care. It was just kind of cool to see and be like, this is like bizarro world, man. I go to school with these guys all the time. And it's like all of a sudden everyone's in these costumes and everyone's scary, and they're wearing their costumes all throughout the day. And there's candy being given out. And like someone's reading a Halloween story from the PA system. And we watched I can't remember what it was.
Did you watch Hocus Pocus?
No, I've never seen that.
Okay.
Actually. In high school, we watched one of the Vincent Price movies.
Okay.
I can't remember what it was, but yeah. So if you grow up in public school, that's the thing. It's always like the week of Halloween. You do a bunch of stuff like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And but it was kind of cool. And admittedly, I love Halloween episodes on TV, like 90s, you know, like Home Improvement used to do the best Halloween episodes.
Yes.
And like 90s Nickelodeon used to do remember Nick or Treat?
Yeah,
do you remember that?
I do, yeah.
Nick or Treat, and they celebrated how like the entire thing was like Halloween themed all throughout the month of October. Doug had Halloween episodes, Rugrats, Rocko's Modern Life, everything had Halloween episodes. And I was like, this is cool. I loved it. I like seeing episodes that are like totally different, you know?
Yeah.
And especially Home Improvement. They had the greatest Halloween episodes. There's like 4 of them that are like fantastic. And I've seen them as an adult actually and been like, this was good.
Like, I still like this.
So I guess I say that to say that like, I'm not the Halloween is of the devil, whoever celebrates it's going to hell sort of a person.
Right.
But at the same time, it's pretty bad, I think. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think like I know deep down, I really don't like it. The holiday, the spirit like behind what Halloween is, all of the history, even though it's convoluted, it's all still points to the same thing to me. It just seems like an obsession with death, the occult, fear, terror, all that stuff. Okay, so we can kind of go through some of this I've been talking a bit, but so that's kind of the basis of where I'm at. I'm against it. I don't like it, but there is something that's kind of fun. Yeah, that I think I see, but I've never wanted to participate because I would be celebrating Halloween, and not just that. I just don't want to.
Right.
You know, I don't want to get sucked into it. And the older I'm getting, the more I'm having a little bit more firmer feelings about how I just really don't want to participate.
Yeah.
And we'll get into why later, but
okay.
Do you have anything? So we can talk about history if not.
Well, no, I mean no, let's get into the history if that's okay.
Yeah.
So when I tried to read a bunch of academic papers on like the origin of Halloween and whatever, and they all said basically the same thing, that yes, you know, it is related to the Irish and Celtic holiday of I'm gonna say Samhain. Yes,
Samhain,
thank
yes.
you. Or Samhain, as some people call it. And then the Roman Catholic Church baptized it in the 7th century, and then switched it to October in the 8th century in order to compete with the Samhain or whatever it's called.
Yeah, because they tried to move it to spring.
They did try to move it to spring, right?
You don't change an Irish man's mind.
Nope.
So they were like, nope.
That's good. Yeah.
This is our holiday.
Right.
They were like, okay, well, we'll move it to.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So they tried to baptize that. They made the feast days. You had All Hallows Eve, and you had the creation of soul cakes that people would, if you were poor, if you were a starving artist, you'd go door to door and offer to say a prayer, say a poem or whatever for that person's deceased loved one, and they'd give you a soul cake. If you don't know what a soul cake is, it's a donut. It's like a donut.
Yeah, but like I say, because I think donuts are delicious,
right?
But I think British people are horrible at dessert.
A
lot of the stuff comes from the Roman Catholic Church, and it's like raisin is not a dessert. If it has raisins or apricots, or okay, I have strong feelings on this, as you can tell. My wife watches the British baking show, and it drives me bonkers to hear it. Like, they make really good stuff, and it's just fun to watch.
Yep.
But But it's like, and for dessert, I made this apricot stew with turnips and raisin cakes, and I'm like, that's not dessert. That's gross, man.
I love raisins.
That's fine, but I like dessert is like donut with chocolate and cream filling.
Yeah,
I
man.
sound like a fatty right now, but like I love dessert, man.
Mm-hmm.
I have strong feelings about dessert.
So,
anyways, it's like a British donut, which means it's probably gross.
Yeah, but the thing is like, even though they tried to baptize it, they couldn't keep the paganism out of it, and so and you know, the thing with Roman Catholicism is that they also had like purgatory and things like that. So,
but even side note, even modern Catholics still believe in purgatory.
Yes, they
right?
still a lot of them. I don't know about all of them, but I know many, if not the majority, still believe in purgatory. I didn't actually look that up, but I mean, I still hear purgatory being talked about in Catholic circles. So,
okay. Anyway, side note.
Yeah. So, and you know, so the people would leave the soul cakes out for their deceased relatives whose spirits would come and supposedly eat the soul cakes or whatever.
Okay.
You know, and that's kind of like a cross-cultural belief if you're not like an evangelical Christian. So there's cultures all across the world who leave stuff out for their dead relatives during special times of the year, like the Chinese do it.
Yeah.
So if you see the movie Shang-Chi, they talk about leaving out wine and cigarettes. And then if you see the movie Coco,
yes, which I have seen actually.
Yes, so they set up altars.
Yeah.
And they put all their deceased loved ones' favorite stuff on the altar, and their spirit comes and visits that altar. And
when you say it like that, it sounds terrible.
Right. So, but I mean,
the movie was so innocent and fun.
Right. So, I mean, so when Mike Winger brings up this stuff in the video, and I was like, he's like, it's evil, and I'm like, my, you know, heart of an anthropologist is cringing a little bit. I'm like, but they don't know the gospel yet.
Right, but we do.
We do. So yes, we do know the gospel. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, yes. So I have to admit that yes, it's pagan as stuff. So they even with the Catholic influence of carving pumpkins and trying it to get to remember the saints of the past who gave their life for the faith, or who are a good influence on us, they still they couldn't baptize Halloween or All Hallows Eve completely to remove the pagan influence from it. And so
okay, so yes, and let me say this one point that I heard Mike Winger say this, and I think I agree, but I had a hard time with it. He was saying the history of Halloween is so convoluted, you can almost get nowhere, so it's almost a moot point.
Right.
It's almost like pointless to talk about that. And I agree, because you're not going to convince someone whose kid is dressed up as a bumblebee that this has pagan roots and, you know, Samhain. It's like, okay, but they're not doing anything pagan. So I get that point. But at the same time, I would say it's really important to go back to roots of things. And so when I see that, it's like, that's the root. It wasn't like the world corrupted it. It was evil at its core.
Yeah.
And it was, and it's really everywhere. Like you said, I'm not saying that the Celts and the Irish, or whatever, I don't know which is, the Irish and the Scottish corrupted every culture, like you said. Like the Asian countries have their own thing. In South America, they have their own thing. But they're all still connected, and just I feel like at the root, it's all about communication with the dead, or the celebration of the dead, which is truly necromancy, communicating with the dead. Right. That's pretty evil.
I mean, it is once you know better. Okay. When you're ignorant of it.
Well, okay. I'll push back on that. It's evil, period.
It's evil, period. Yeah, but if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
And so, like,
there has to be something in you though that's like communicating with the dead. Is that freaking you out? That sound?
No.
Okay.
I always think it's a dog.
I don't even notice it anymore.
All right.
So we have to people listening. We have this screen that's pulled together by magnets.
Is it the magic mesh?
Yes.
Okay.
Magic mesh. Yeah. So when the wind blows, it pushes towards the door, which is attractive. Anyways, there has to be something in you, even if you're not born again, that says like communication with the dead's kind of weird. You know, there has to be something that has to be like, is this right?
I would honestly have to ask somebody who's grown up with that.
That's a good point. Sure.
I really, that's the only way that I could be sure about that. But maybe.
Yeah.
They couldn't remove paganism from it, and they even like it seemed like they were wishy-washy on it. Man, I'm about to do some algebra here, mental gymnastics here. In one way, it's kind of like a bane to an atheist, okay, because it shows that every culture throughout history believes in a spiritual or supernatural world, okay, of either like creator spirits or an afterlife.
Sure, right.
Okay, but so there's that, but the problem, and then there's also the idea of, okay, communicating with the dead, bad. Okay. Memorializing the dead, not so bad. Okay. It's important to remember that we're mortal. We die. Let's make the best of our lives. Let's serve and honor God. Let's, serve our community.
And I would say
whatever.
Some of this is even in the Old Testament, the idea that that Abraham was buried with his fathers.
That's right.
And they took Joseph's bones from Egypt and laid it next to it. So there is something about recognizing respect for the dead.
Yeah.
And it's like where your burial is at matters. Yeah.
But so, you could make a case for, and that was really kind of the most pure part of All Hallows Eve or All Saints Day, was to remember the saints that came before you. However, where it kind of falls apart is when their spirits come and eat these soul cakes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because they're supposed to be at rest.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And so the belief that the veil between this world and the spirit world is thinnest on Halloween night. That's pagan.
It's
paganism.
Pagan, yeah.
And so all of these people, who died, they're supposed to be at rest. And if you've got spirits who are out like that, like that's not going to be your deceased loved ones.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
You're not really communicating with the dead. You just think you are.
Right.
The devil would love you to believe that you're communicating with your dead relative, but it's probably just some demonic spirit.
Right.
And that's the thing. I'm not even saying, oh, that's hocus pocus. I'm saying it's real, and that's why I'm against it.
Yeah.
The spiritual world is very real. The Bible could not be more clear on this, you know. That there are angels and demons, and there are lying spirits that would love to deceive you, that would love to torment you, to possess you, to kill you if they can. This is their bent, is to destroy the sons of God, like by all accounts, and keep people from believing the truth. I think that's why I have such a strong dislike for the season. It's not because I think it's all just, well, that's the world. It's evil. And I don't like when Christians or anybody like tries to like neuter it, like the church tried to, you know, like I get it pretty much has been neutered for the most part, but now we're seeing a crazy, weird, sick resurgence. But once again, we'll come back to that. But I don't think they're communicating with the dead. I think they're communicating like with the Ouija boards and the seances that happen and things like that. I'm still so weirded out by that, like in a movie. If it's a cartoon, I don't like it, man.
Well, you know, with all that, you can, I mean, there is a spiritual component to that, but you can also blame one other thing for the Ouija boards and seances, and that is the Enlightenment.
Okay, you're gonna have to educate me a little on that.
Where reason, it's again where reason in the mind just trumped everything, and where any kind of emotionalism or like spirituality was reduced to superstition. Okay, and so that repressed people.
Okay,
and then out of Enlightenment, the Enlightenment era, you had a movement called Romanticism.
Right.
Okay, and that's, you know, if you've seen the movie Moulin Rouge,
yes,
you got the Bohemian people that live all around that area. They're all part of the Romanticism movement. Okay, you know, which was kind of like a protest against all these stuffy Enlightenment era, whatever.
Yeah,
and so you'd have, if I just went over this with my high school history class. You'd have these people who are very well-to-do in European society, completely like on board with Enlightenment philosophy, but you know, they'd have parties, secret parties, and even societies where they do these seances because they were so spiritually repressed that it kind of created this very unhealthy outlet.
Okay.
And it didn't die. Okay.
There's so many examples in history of this.
There is, but as far as in Western society, okay, I think that's where, you know, we get the interest with the seances in Ouija boards, and then when like 70s and 80s, and I guess you could say 60s, when a lot of the other spiritual religions or spiritualism, okay, when that got started cropping up in the 60s, that's when it started to go mainstream and people started to tolerate it more and more. And then here we are today with like Arms Wide Open, Creed song.
As soon as you said that, I could hear his voice.
Exactly.
Anyway,
So
yeah, and we're all better for it. This great.
I like to blame a lot of stuff on the Enlightenment era. I realize that, but that's because so many people prop up the Enlightenment era as far as reason and logic goes.
Well, because it did an unbelievably tremendous thing to the world.
It did,
you know, to science and medicine.
Exactly.
Good night.
Industry.
We owe so much to that. No
we
question.
do. Yeah.
But yeah, like most things, it's like
it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. Sure.
So, but I think like, and I kind of fall into that postmodern fad where, you know, I like to deconstruct all of the things that made me mad, all the repressive stuff. I think.
Yeah. Okay. So okay. But you were saying this about, I'm curious where you were going with this thought. You said it's a bane to the atheist because you look around at every culture and you see there is some sort of connective tissue.
Right. And so you've got 95% of the world believing in the afterlife or some sort of spirituality. And then you have 5% of the world, they're the ones who are right. Just that 5%.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah.
So that's
a good point. Yeah.
So, you know, they have to wrestle with that fact, and the way that, you know, you can do, the atheists, I think, can do that is they're primitive.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So you said something that triggered a memory, and this is really funny. Okay, so it has to do with what we've been talking about, and it has to do with the now. Okay, so I worked at this place, this automotive place, and I talked to this guy, and he was like, hey, so what are you going as for Halloween?
Mm-hmm.
And I stole somebody else's line, and I said, I'm going as an adult. And he was like, oh, what? Are you one of those Christians who doesn't celebrate? I was like, yep. As I always say, I'm one of those. Sure, whatever. I quit fighting it now. I'm not like, no, I'm cool. Look, I'll turn my hat backwards. Like, I got tattoos, man. I'm just done playing that game. So I was just yep, that's me. And he was like, no. He was like, why don't you celebrate Halloween? And I said, what are you celebrating?
All right. Okay.
Yeah. So that was, and I said, what are you celebrating? And he was like, no, bro. Who's not a Christian. This guy's not a believer. Okay. So he said the funniest thing to me. He said, no, I bet you think it's like really bad or something, right? And I just kind of stared at him and I was like, what are you celebrating? And he's like, okay, so like the history of Halloween is this. He's like, all it is that like the Irish and the Scottish believed that the veil between the living and the dead was the thinnest on Halloween. And so there was a lot of like spiritual activity, a lot of demonic, and the dead would come back. And so to keep them from possessing your soul, you dressed up like a demon so they didn't know which was which. And that was what he said to me. And I stared at him. It was like, I let a very long, awkward silence fall. And I was like, were you trying to convince me of something?
That it wasn't bad.
Right.
I bet you believe it's
like,
something bad.
No. I bet you think it's bad. No.
Yeah.
It's really about demonic possession and keeping yourself from. I was just like, you are so badly proving my point right now. And I was just like, right. So back to what I said. What are you celebrating? He was like, nothing. It's just a fun holiday. And I'm like, okay, but I don't get it. I don't understand why you would do that. So anyway, that's what I think of when I think of history. And so every little piece of Halloween has something to do with that. I get that it's a culmination of lots of different cultures. So many things of American holidays are that way. A good example, I bring these two up all the time. This is where I guess I suppose I have to call myself out a little bit. I bring up Christmas and Easter. There are two very pagan things that we do every Christmas and every Easter. And I guess I never knew that they had pagan origin. And now that I do, I don't really care. Is the Christmas tree. Yes. And the eggs.
Yeah. Well, as far as the eggs goes, like, I was curious about that. And what I've seen is that, maybe I'm wrong, maybe this was with the rabbit, but the Lutherans introduced the eggs.
Is that right? That's
yes.
not what I understood.
So some people say, no, it's cause Babylonian fertility goddess.
Right. And that's true. The Easter was the Babylonian fertility goddess. And the eggs had to do with fertile. Being fertile. Right.
There again, I think
I wonder if that's Lutheranism trying to baptize that tradition.
It could be like I think the reason why we have Marxism is because of Lutheran Church in Germany. So there could be that could be the case. I know the reason why we have evergreens during Christmas is, especially with the Advent wreath, is because of the Lutherans. The evergreen symbolizes something important with God. I can't, but I guess just it's evergreen, everlasting, eternal.
Okay, in the circle,
right?
Okay.
So in the circle there. So, I think that that could have been at one point pagan, because with Germany, you have in that area, really, you have a lot of beliefs that date way back to the Roman Empire. So that could be, and at different points in time, a lot of that stuff made resurgences in things like that.
So I think that's where I understand Mike Winger's point. Just because it's like there's so many things you do that we just do, we don't think about.
Yeah,
and it's like, I think when you get older, you start to understand the history of things, and you're like, why are we doing this with this tree? Why are we cutting down a tree and putting it in our house and decorating it?
I know why I do it.
Why?
Because my family looks forward to it every year, and we get to spend time together as a family putting up that tree, putting on the
It's a
decorations,
blast. I do it every year.
and discussing, where these ornaments came from. And we get to spend time together as a family.
Yeah.
And, I know that there are some Christians out there who don't do that because they're like, oh, this is pagan roots. I'm sorry if this hurts somebody, but I would call them piously woke.
Piously woke.
Yes, where they're like, they're so like caught up with the origins of thing,
Right.
of that they like, they're, if they do something, God is going to cease to exist, or the importance of God is going to be removed from it. Like, so if your kids are more concerned about like presents and things like that, is that the Christmas tree's fault? No, it's your fault as a parent for not teaching them the why you celebrate Christmas.
Yeah.
So
so that kind of brings me to this point, though.
Mhm.
I'm with you about the Christmas tree. I'm with you about the eggs.
Mhm.
It's just tradition.
I hate the eggs.
It's fun. Why?
Because
it's so much fun.
Well, I like eating hard-boiled eggs. And I like chocolate.
I don't. I what I'm referring to when I say eggs, I'm referring to stuffing eggs with candy and hiding them all over the place for the kids to get. I did that growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Our kids do that. My wife, it's very tradition. Okay, my wife will watch an entire football game with me, and it's like high stakes. There's millions of dollars on the line on every one of these football games, not just for the universities, but for the bettors. It's a big deal. And I'm freaking out back in the day when I was like really into football. I was at my mom's house and I was watching Clemson, Alabama in the championship.
Okay.
And I was just sick and tired of seeing Alabama winning it. And so I was sweating. I was like on my hands and knees watching it with anticipation. I was like pacing. It was like timeout. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't breathe. I'm freaking out. And then after the game's over, Clemson won, and I was like relieved. And I told my mom, I was like, oh geez, I didn't even have a team in this game. And she was like, that was you not having a team? I was like, that's crazy. What does it look like when you have a team? So it's like, that's how much I get into these games. They're so much fun. My wife doesn't care at all. She's interested, of course. I'll be talking to her about it or whatever. And she flipped out when the Cubs won the World Series because she's my wife and she knows I'm nuts about the Cubs. And but like she just doesn't care. It's not a big deal. But when it comes to an Easter egg hunt, she is the most competitive I've ever seen. Like she is like nuts, and so she is like, it affects the rest of her day if she does not win that Easter egg. This is an adult. It's hysterical to me. Or like in the backyard playing bocce ball. I've seen her come alive, like fire in the eyes, and I'm like, I don't care. This is just kind of fun.
Yeah.
But anyway, we love the Easter egg thing, and I love the Christmas tree. It's pretty. I love trees. I love the smell. I love decorating them. A lot of that is tradition, but I agree with you in the sense pious woke. That's interesting, but I would at least say I think it's way too uppity to be so concerned about that and just be like, oh my gosh, do you have fun?
Yes.
That's what I wonder if what people think about me.
Okay.
When they're like, I have a case for this, but go ahead.
That's one of my questions.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. He's pulling out the journal.
When are Christians supposed to have fun?
Yeah. Yeah. On these days of the year that the church calendar celebrates. I'm kidding, of course, but yeah, that's a good point. That's how I feel about it. I just feel like, oh my, like everything's like, hey, do you want some eggnog? No. Do you know who that company is? They sell. I'm like, okay, I can't go around making sure that I don't. There are exceptions, okay? If a company really goes, like we were talking about Disney, if Disney goes that far, like they have been doing, trying to trans kids, I'm done with you. You're disgusting. You're not getting my money. I'm against you. But I can't follow every one of these corporations and know this coffee I drink comes from this, and they're a socialist, and this country's this. And I'm like, I want to live my life, and I want to have fun.
Right.
And I don't want everything to be political all the time.
Yeah.
Or religious all the time. I mean that in the pure sense of the word religion, not like Christian, because I love, obviously, I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
Doing a podcast, we're talking about the word all the time. But like I do kind of wonder with people like that. And I have to be careful because I know people that were very close to them, love these people, respect these people to the max. They are like, no Easter eggs. We do not do Easter eggs. And I'm like, okay, that's your thing. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call them woke or that they're lame or any of that stuff. I'm like, I just don't. This is where we have to bring up Corinthians, about that there's nothing evil in of itself if it's taken with thanksgiving. I think you can see something and be like, okay, I'm sure it has some pagan root, but you know what? I'm in Christ. I'm in Christ.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of anything like that.
So my point to that, when are Christians supposed to have fun? The Israelites had 7 feast days or 7 feasts.
Yes.
The majority are festive and celebratory. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Christians, okay, barely. So you got all these Christians out there who can't even celebrate Christmas, and then so that leaves them with Resurrection Sunday. But then they're gonna abstain from the other stuff because it has pagan origins. Whatever. I don't want to put a stumbling block in front of everybody. But when are Christians supposed to have fun? Yeah. Like outside of a potluck at church?
Yeah.
Those are fun. But anyways, when do we get to have fun? Are we going to be like these morose, super serious, trudging along through the mud of life?
Yeah.
Blessings to you, poor soul.
Yeah.
Or something. Do you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying because I'm trying to think of a good example of this. I had someone over at my house, didn't really know this guy that well. He was like I don't know if all Calvinists are like this or not, but I just when I wasn't living for God, I would say he has something up his rear end.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the way that I see a lot of these people, because it's like, we're at a going away party for my brother-in-law, and this guy comes in, and 5 minutes into it, he's having a discussion about predestination or something.
Oh, gosh.
I'm like, would you just I don't even drink, but I'm like, have a drink and like have fun. Like whatever's going to chill you out, man. Stop with your spreading your doctrine. It's not life-giving. It's just restricting. Okay. And so it's like, you may be listening to this. You may be thinking this, like, you're saying like, have fun, don't be such a stick in the mud, all that stuff. Well, what about you in Halloween? Okay, here's my defense for that. What I would say is this. We can get back to those too. What I would say is this, okay? It's like, yes, I'm sure there's some pagan thing about Christmas trees, but I don't know anything about it. We're born again, spirit-filled believers. I've been doing this. It's a tradition thing. We cut the tree down, like I said, decorate it. It's so much fun. I love it. Okay, it's fun. But it's like, but that has roots in paganism. But here's the thing. I'm not celebrating paganism. I am not bringing this tree in because my great ancestors did this crazy thing. I'm just doing it because it's fun. It's like, but what's the meaning behind Christmas? It's about Christ.
Right. Yes.
It's about Christ. This is why when we wake up in the morning, the first thing we do with the kids is read the Christmas story. We're going to learn about how Jesus gave the greatest gift of all. God gave the greatest gift of all. That is what matters, you know? And that's what we drive home. And it's like, that's the meaning of Christmas. It's totally Christ-centered. Okay. So what's all this other stuff? It doesn't matter. Like, I'm not going to be corrupted by it. I'm not celebrating. Like, my whole life is about celebrating Christ. My life is in Christ. So I'm not worried about anything corrupting that. Like, if it comes to me, it's blessed, man. If it comes to me, it's under the blood. I'm not worried about it. Okay. But the main thing is I celebrate Christmas because it's where we celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. Easter, same concept. I know it's called Easter because some Babylon, who cares? It's about Jesus. It's about the resurrected Savior. This is the hope of our salvation.
Right.
As Paul said, if Christ is not risen again, we are dead in our sins.
Yeah.
This is the greatest celebration ever. So it's great. So color some eggs. They're blessed, anointed eggs. I don't care what stupid Babylonian fertility thing. I don't care. It's fun.
Yeah.
Eat the eggs, have fun, throw them around. It's tradition.
Uh-huh.
So that's what I really believe about all this. Halloween. What is it all about?
Uh-huh.
There's nothing good. It's not about Christ. It's about death, and like everything about it is like weird to me. And I'm like, I can't separate tradition and having fun with like strip away things. Okay, this is what I have to say about Christmas. Like, strip it away. What is it really about? Christ. Easter. Strip it away. What is it really about? Christ. Halloween. Strip it away. What's it about? Death. Death. Demonic. Evil. Fear. This is it. You cannot separate fear from Halloween. They are interlinked.
Yeah.
Whatever historical thing you look at, scary is Halloween, and Halloween is scary. It's like linked, man. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. So Tim J does not do Halloween.
I don't.
Tim T does do Halloween.
All right, let's get into this. Yes.
All right. So
tell me why you have no conviction.
There, and there's some of the stuff I looked up. There was confirmation bias. I'm like, I agree with this because I do it.
Yeah. Sure.
But some of them went way. Even though I agreed with them, some of them were like way overboard as far as like, ha ha ha, in your face. Strict Christians who don't celebrate Halloween. I'm like, okay, let's just all calm down.
Yeah.
All right. So we don't, minus one person in my household.
Okay.
We don't do the evil crap, the pagan like witches stuff, except for my son Ethan, who does whatever he wants. He doesn't do that anymore, though. I think he's really had a change lately, and I think it's a large part of because school. He's got a good group of Christian. I mean, not just his teachers, but his friends. They're really good kids, and so he's made this change where he doesn't want to dress up as something scary. He has really little brother who, if he scares, I'm gonna be on him about it. Anyways, so
a little warning shot there.
Yeah, but we don't do that stuff. I know the roots of Halloween. Those roots concern me. I don't agree with Mike Winger, and yet we still go trick or treating. And so I did like his point about, is this girl dressed up as a bumblebee really doing something evil? And I've got a kid in one of my classes who's going as the armor of God when he goes trick-or-treating.
Right. Yeah.
So is he participating in something really evil? Let's have some discernment there. And I'm going to say, no, I don't think he's participating in something evil.
Right.
Okay. Because he's trick-or-treating.
And I agree with you.
He's getting candy. We get candy.
And you guys participate in a super safe neighborhood.
We do, yeah.
It's nice. I love you. I love your neighborhood.
A lot of our neighbors don't do Halloween.
Yeah.
Which I find half weird and half like refreshing to know, oh, there are, people with very strong convictions, even if I disagree with them.
And so are these people who don't do Halloween, are they Christians?
I know that there's quite a few in our neighborhood. Yeah. So,
well, one of my clients, the one right down the street from you, is a Baptist woman, and I haven't had obviously a conversation like this about it, but she's like, I love seeing the kids dress up,
right,
and I love giving them candy. She's like, I just love, and she has the sweetest heart, such a sweet old lady. Like I love her, and it's like, I agree with you on that. And I think that's one of the points that Mike Winger brings up. He shows a picture of like a cowboy kid dressed as Batman, them going out trick-or-treating. Are they participating in evil? No, of course not. They're doing like a traditional thing that's like somewhere in history, that we've been doing for years. So
right.
Your point is taken. I get that.
So, their dad, they're unfortunate because their dad's a theology major, and whenever I get into his speech, they're like,
Here we go.
So
Let's hear about the Enlightenment again.
yeah. If they say something and I'm like, wait a minute, what? They're like, yeah, they have to buckle up. So, but anyways, for us, they get to see their cousins. They get to see their family, they're all about the same age. So it's fun for them, man. They get to hang out.
For sure.
I have made it about the imagination. Okay. I believe the imagination is God-given, and I think that is something that should be celebrated. And this kind of goes back to our talk last time about media in Christianity and how it's not good. Okay. Yeah. And so what do we one of the things that we rely on in Christian media is the popularity of stories that were told almost 100 years ago. So we've got the Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Just like, I love the Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah. It's all sort of magic.
Not that, but it's Christian. But what have we done since then?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
We've got the Veggie Tales. That was in the 1990s.
We got Kirk Cameron.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, so we've got two really cool things. We have the OG Veggie Tales and the Chronicles of Narnia.
And Lord of the Rings, okay.
Lord again, 100 years ago, almost 100 years ago. What else do we have?
Yeah. And I'm sure you could point to many things. I do know that there is the guy who directed Benedict Cumberbatch superhero.
Doctor Strange?
Doctor Strange. He's a believer.
He is, yeah. And he directs all this scary junk. Like he's directed horror movies.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. Like The Conjuring or something crazy like
serious?
that. Yes.
That was my point.
I
was going to say, like, I like the idea that believers are just making or telling stories and just directing or producing. They're just doing it. It doesn't have to be like, we're going to make a Christian movie so that we'll encourage Christians. Make a good movie.
One of the either producers or writers for the Hellraiser franchise is a very devout Roman Catholic. I don't get it. Like,
I feel like I get that more than I do like a Pentecostal or a charismatic,
right?
So Roman Catholicism doesn't scream like wholesome to me. Maybe I don't fully understand it. It just seems like I think I hear Roman Catholic, I just think of the Inquisition and torture.
Okay, yeah, I could
stuff,
see that.
And I'm like, that's like right along the
vein
of Hellboy.
No, Hellraiser.
Oh, Hellraiser.
Yeah, with Pinhead.
Oh, I was picturing Hellboy.
No.
That's a funny thing.
Yeah, Hellboy. I don't know.
I've never seen Hellraiser, so I don't know.
Very violent horror flick.
Okay. They're remaking it too.
Yeah, they remade it. Again, I think that's a symptom of the imagination within Christianity getting repressed. So we're relying on these old stories to carry us through, and we're just I think there's a lot of good children's shows. Like I liked Adventures in Odyssey, and Superbook. I think those are all great for you. And so those are good. And then we've got, there's the Pilgrim's
Progress.
Yeah, there's what is it on Right Now Media? They have, but again, that story is like 200 plus years old. So you're relying on something that was told a long time ago to keep the imagination of evangelical Christians or Protestants, what have you, going. And we're not creating very much new stuff that is meant to appeal to the popular, except for maybe now the newest thing, which is good, is the Wingfeather Saga is a new Christian children's young adult series
Yeah.
that it was written by, super popular. So that's something new.
Well, that's kind of what I mean. I feel like there's tons of things out there that I'm not even aware of that believers are doing.
Right.
And it's not
Probably.
just like retelling. Of course, look, even The Chosen, which is truly like as Christian as it gets. It's the story of Jesus again. But it's amazing.
Right.
It's amazing storytelling.
So there's always themes that can be retold, and it not, but how much is it getting done, and how not schlocky, or cheesy or overproduced is it, just to make sure that, hey, you got to be Ned Flanders here, or you're gonna be
you can be creative in these tiny parameters,
right? Yeah.
And as soon as you go out of there, it's no longer Christian. And I love what you're saying right now, because I'm of the mind that it's like, God is so creative, man. Just tell a good story.
Yeah.
Like just do whatever you want to do. And that's what's funny, is that like as much as I agree with some of the people who have gone before me, who were very much like, don't do the magic thing, and really, like, I was talking about Fantasia and wizardry and sorcery and all that stuff. As much as I agree with them, I'm also like, what about C.S. Lewis and all the magic? The magic, he like literally says magic and sorcery and the idea of this parallel universe called Narnia. There's tons of magic and spells and witches and all that stuff. And it's like, I wonder, I know I wasn't really around when that came out, obviously, but I wonder what like a lot of charismatic evangelical, whatever, Christians thought of that. I wonder if they were like, that's the devil's work, because it's magic or whatever.
I mean, so with Lord of the Rings, like my parents didn't, maybe my dad did, but my mom didn't understand that Tolkien was very devoutly Christian. He was, he wasn't, he wasn't a Roman Catholic, but he was a Catholic. I forget, it was like PO something Catholic, but he had great theology. He was inspired by a lot of the early church fathers, and so of course I'm going to nerd out about that. But his stuff was very mythological.
Yes.
Also, like if you read the Silmarillion, which is about the creation of the place where Middle Earth is, they have a creator god, then they have deities called the Valar, and then there's several different types of like fantasy races, like the elves and dwarves and men and orcs and goblins and things like that. And then you've got the Magi, the Magi or whatever, the wizards. Okay, they do magic. And they talk about the unseen magic of the unseen world, which is like dark magic and things like that. And Gandalf in The Hobbit throws flaming pine cones at orcs and wargs and trolls and things like that. Yeah. And so my mom, when Lord of the Rings came out, the movies, when she saw the trailer, she's like, "That's evil."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "No.
That was made by a Christian."
Right. It was written by a Christian.
And that's a very good thought. And that's kind of what I think about, because as I'm reading the Chronicles of Narnia to my kids right now. Yeah. And so we're on Prince Caspian.
Okay.
And so we've read, this is the fourth one I think we've read. And every time it comes to something about wizardry or the witch, or he's kind of a hard read, I think. C.S. Lewis is, and in some ways, I think it's because he's British. Yeah, and they have just a funny way of writing. And I'm like, why don't you just say it? Right, and it's the 40s and 50s. Yeah, for sure. And so I'm reading it, I'm having a hard time, and I'm like, I'll read 2 pages and then ask, "You understand what I'm saying? Do you understand the story?" And he's like, "Kind of." And so I have to kind of give a brief summary, you know. And but I love it. It's such a fascinating story. All stories, I should say. But every time I come across all that magic and wizardry and all that stuff, I'm always like, now I don't have a checker in my spirit or anything like that, because I know C.S. Lewis. I know he's an amazing guy, amazing thinker. He loves the Lord. And but I'm always like, magic, huh? Okay. I feel like I'm a little more open to the idea of like, oh, I think you can just be creative. And I do understand the idea of like, magic or whatever is almost like a way to say like, well, use your imagination. Like, I can fly now.
Right.
And I don't want the church to be like, demonic, you cannot fly.
Right.
That's the devil's work, you know. I don't want that to be the image of the church. So kind of going, I'm fine to stay on this, but kind of going back to what you're talking about, as strong as opinions as I have about Halloween, I also feel like I'm really gracious towards people who celebrate it, towards believers who do.
Yeah.
Because I know they're not participating in anything demonic. I know they're just trick-or-treating with their kids, but I'm still like, why are you doing that?
So so here's where I'm. If you repress the imagination, it's gonna have a negative outlet, and what's gonna happen is that you're gonna be seduced by other things. Okay, so Christianity, it's not meant to be a religion of doctrine. Okay,
Right.
it's meant also to be. There is doctrine, of course. There's orthodoxy.
Yeah.
But it's also an experiential religion where you experience God. And if you're all doctrine all the time, and you're not about, this is where I get into just my rants about Christian mysticism. Okay. Which, there's a whole argument out there about mysticism is pagan. Well, not within Christianity. Right. It's not, because you're filling, you're all about filling yourself with thinking and meditating on God and His Word and things like that. So if you don't allow your imagination, Paul says you take your imagination captive for Christ, right?
Yeah.
He's all things are created through Him, for Him. Go back to Him. I don't know what it says in Colossians there.
Yeah.
And
there was nothing
in John.
That was created that He did not create. Yes.
Right.
All creativity is.
Can you all of that came out of God?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Okay, right? So why shouldn't your imagination flourish?
Right.
From serving and believing and loving such a creative and imaginative God. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's so great, dude. I feel like I had this conversation with a lot of believers, like people I'm close with, especially with my wife. Is what we always talk about. Like, why is it that most there are some exceptions, but most Christian media, all outlets, music, movies, TV, whatever, why is it so not interesting?
Yeah.
And here's the thing. What the world is creating is really not interesting anymore as a whole.
Yeah,
they just recreate the same garbage again. And it's because they're total capitalists, I'm a capitalist, but it's the idea that it's let's remake The Lion King. We don't have to create anything new.
Right.
Let's redo. They have redone everything. They have redone everything. And I'm like, but there's no new spin. It's we'll make her black. We'll make him whatever, and I'm like, that's the level of creativity. You're Hollywood. All of the greatest writers in the world come here. And this is what you guys have. Redo it. I think what it is that they're too afraid to take risk.
Yeah, probably.
Because when a new idea comes, there's a lot of risk associated with it. If we make this, I'm trying to think of Ben-Hur. Okay, this is old.
Right.
But MGM poured every last dollar. They were about to hit bankruptcy, and they poured every last dollar into making Ben-Hur. And it was that was the biggest risk. If this movie does not do well, we're done. And Ben-Hur won Best Picture and totally revolutionized the industry.
Yeah.
And you could say that about a lot of things. They took a chance with Steven Spielberg on Jaws, which is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
But there's risk associated with it. And it's I think a lot of these people, they have so much wealth that they're we're not risking all this for some young upcoming director who has a vision, because it could be trash. But the reason I bring this up is because I wonder if now is the perfect time, because the world is not seeing any new creativity. Is this the perfect time for the church to be we serve the God who created all of this? Let's churn out some great stuff.
Yeah.
Let's churn out things that push the boundaries, a little bit more, that make even the church a little uncomfortable and says, should we be telling that story? Should we be doing that? That's kind of, you're on the fringe right there with that. You're right on the boundaries, pushing the boundaries a little bit. That's a good place to be, in terms of creativity.
Yeah.
But I want you to say that last sentence. It was so good that I wanted to write it down. If you repress the imagination,
it's going to have negative outlets.
You're
going to be seduced by another influence. Okay. And so with Halloween, you've got all of the spirituality with Halloween. There's a store called the Spirit of Halloween,
right?
Where you get your Halloween costumes.
Did you ever see the Babylon Bee article about the Spirit?
No, I don't think so.
Sorry, I just thought I'd throw this out there. It was like 5 minutes after Noah left the ark. It became a Spirit Halloween.
I'll either that or a Dollar General.
yeah. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
So, and I think that's why people get anything like the church forbids. People are going to be like, ooh, let me check this out.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I think that's what you've got a lot going on with Halloween. It's like, first we're going to repress the imagination. Then we're going to say, hey, don't do that. I'm like, why? Let me look at it.
Right.
Okay. So and this goes along with, I mean, I'm not sure how you're going to feel about this, but this only goes along with some of the media. Like one of my favorite book series is about a private investigator in Chicago who deals with like supernatural threats. Okay. And so I like that kind of stuff. I don't know why. It's because I find Christian entertainment boring. I'm like, I do. And it's like, what do I need to watch another show about a special ops team? Because that's what I feel like my alternative is when it comes to fiction and being a God-fearing Christian,
especially if you're someone who is creative. I feel like I'm trying to understand this a little bit more and more now. There are some people who are very creative. There are some people who are like ultra creative, and like so much so, like I think this is probably a stigma, but like I think there's some truth to it. If you are someone who is like overly creative, you're also overly sensitive. You don't fit very well in boxes. You might not have like, I would say mental stability, but not that you're crazy, but just that like any confines drive you crazy. And you almost like flop into this bipolar thing.
Yeah, because like, so 5 years ago or so, like I went on Facebook and I said, I want to write a novel about werewolves, but it's going to have Christian themes. And immediately, like, are you sure you should be doing that? Comments, you're Christian.
You're bringing up such a good point right now. And I don't know that I have a point to this, but I at least want to say this. I had a conversation with Justin, my brother, about this, and he was saying, what I don't want, and so I'm quoting him. He was saying, what I don't want is to tell my kids to be afraid of something.
Yeah.
To be like, don't look at that. Don't do this. Okay, so should I tell the story? I'll be vague. Okay. It's about my kids, and so I want to protect them, and I'll be as vague as I can be. We were in this place recently in a park somewhere. I'll tell you about it afterward. My son is very keen spiritually.
Okay.
I feel like he has he might have some prophetic giftings. I'm not sure. But he was telling me he saw something in the spirit realm. He's playing by something and he saw something. I'll not say what it was, but it was not anything good. It was evil. And it made me ask him question after question and be like, wait, what did you see? Was this a real person? And it was so creepy. I was like, what? Wait a minute. You have to tell me this again. What did you see? And I went over there and I was praying in tongues and I was just I wasn't like, let's go and charge it, cast you out. I was just like, just praying, trying to ask the Holy Spirit. I'm like, what is this? Is there something? Did he really see something here demonic?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm praying in the Spirit. I'm just pleading the blood of Jesus. I'm taking authority over whatever I need to take authority over. But I'm just not afraid. I don't feel like I have to raise my voice and yell and scream and foam at the mouth. I'm just like, if you have authority, you have authority. So it doesn't matter how loud you scream.
Right.
And so I just felt like, man, I'm taking authority here. And so if he did see anything, we're just going to take authority over that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I bring this up because someone that I was with said, oh, you're not going to let him go over there anymore then, right? And I was like, I don't know.
Right.
It was a moment where I had to just say, the old me would have said, yeah, that's bad. He doesn't need to go over there anymore. And the new me is that sound funny, like the one who's not an alcoholic. I feel like the new way I'm kind of thinking about it is like, I just want to ask the Holy Spirit because I don't want to say, no, don't go over there. Mm-hmm. He's instantly going to be like, what's over there? I wasn't freaked out by that. I'm kind of interested in that. What is that? And if he knows it's a big fat no, that might draw him. Mm-hmm. But I also have to use wisdom, right? Because if there is something dangerous over there, spiritually speaking, I don't want my son to, sure, go, fine. Because I did want to tell him, don't be afraid of the devil. Don't be afraid of anything demonic. Don't be afraid of that stuff. And he's like, I'm not. But then I have to tell him, but it's real and they have teeth, you understand? And it's a funny line. It's a funny balance that I'm finding myself in where I'm saying, like, you need to know the devil is real. Mm-hmm. Every believer needs to know the devil is very real. Demons are real. They have power. They have authority. They can do lots of things in the spirit. They do not have authority over Christ and those who fully understand that they are in Christ, who walk in a level of authority. And I think there's something to be said about that. If you're a disciple of Jesus Christ, you grow in your authority. You have the fullness of Christ. I'm not saying like you become.
No, I know what you're saying.
Okay.
Yep.
I feel like I was stumbling there. You have a more fullness understanding of your authority the more you grow in Christ. That's why the stagnation doesn't work in the kingdom. Mm-hmm. You don't get to be you're going to get wiped out if you're stagnant.
Right.
You have to be growing. So the more you grow in your authority, the more opportunity you have to use your authority. And if you've ever heard anyone talk about like the demonic, sometimes it's like, I thought I was ready. Okay. And then I met the witch doctor who put me in my freaking place, or a good example of that biblically would be Acts, the 7 sons of Sceva.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So the demon, they try to cast a demon out in the name of Paul, or Jesus, whom Paul preaches.
Right.
The demon beat them up and sent them on their way.
Yes. That's right.
Does that mean the demons have authority over Christ? No, they have authority over people who don't know anything about Christ.
Yes.
Who are not in covenant. So that's important to know. I'm at least, and I don't have an answer. Mm-hmm. That's why I say I don't know that I have a point, except to say I'm at least saying you need to know that this is real, and it can be really scary. So that's why I'm saying right now, don't mess with that because it's real. First, I would say learn who you are in Christ. Yep. Learn about your armor. Learn about all that stuff. We're not going to be afraid of that. Mm-hmm. And as far as should you go over there, I'm going to say don't. Right. But
yeah. So that brings up a good point. Like you know who you are in Christ, and like, because that's how my daughter was saved. Basically, was learning about deliverance and things like that, and so that's a great point. And, but if to come back full circle, so the reason why we do trick or treating, okay, is because that gives us just a day to dress up as our favorite character. And we're not, our kids know, they know that it's not going to be this spooky, scary stuff. And they're very creative. Anna is way better at this than I am, even though I love creativity, but she's all about encouraging them, especially with the more positive, creative stuff. Like this year, Logan's going to be going as Sonic. And then I forget, Henry is going to be a pirate for whatever reason. And then my daughter is going as a Disney character. But that's what it's about for us. It's about the fellowship. It's about the creating them candy, of course, and then any pack of Swedish fish that they're gonna get is probably gonna be the parent tax.
Crack.
Okay, love it.
There's like no flavor in that. Anyway,
it's cherry, right? I think
cherry. It's just like nothing.
All the red stuff, like so the Sour Patch Kids, the ones that are red, they taste like Swedish fish to me. So I'm gonna take them.
Right? Yeah.
So
I can see that.
But anyways, but they know like why we don't do the scary stuff. They know, why we're opposed to it, and so what I'm saying is that's when we make it about. I call it National Cosplay Day sometimes, just because I don't like the Halloween stuff. It's so overblown and boring. Like my brother, he's so funny. Whenever he sees a new ghost movie or horror movie advertised on TV, he has a field day with like, "Ooh, we're supposed to be scared again. They're chasing us again." So original.
Yeah, sure.
So that's just the day where we celebrate the imagination for us, because our kids are imaginative anyways, and every day they have they use them, but that's the one day where we can just full on celebrate it like we would celebrate Easter every day, of course. But then we have
that drives me crazy when people say that. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I'm just trying to use it as like an example, but then we have the day where it's a full on celebration of Easter. And so for my wife and I, we've really tried to transition Halloween into just being a day about celebrating our favorite characters and whatever.
Yeah. And so I think that's where I've changed on a lot of things. And I don't know that it's a strong opinion. I think it's just about grace. And so like understanding to be gracious to people and not so against everything. That's what I don't want people to think about me or the church at large, is that like we know so specifically what you're against. So what are you for? Okay, so what we're for is people. You love people, and you're not really going to get people to see your perspective or hear your heart if you're always slamming your fists and saying it's evil, it's the devil's work. And so that brings me to this thought. There was a time when I maybe was like so against Halloween that I was like, believers don't even need to be doing like dress up stuff, not just not celebrating Halloween and going trick or treating. We don't even need to be doing harvest carnival, any of that stuff. And I've since totally cooled on that. Maybe having kids has done that. Yeah. Here's the thing. If you have kids, kids love to dress up. Yeah. My kids will dress up on a Tuesday. Yes. Like it's so funny to come home and see them. We got this armor, not even like armor of God. It's probably from, Dollar Tree or something, but they wanted it. And I came home and they were like dressed up, and it's so their body posture changes. I remember when my son Paxton, the very first time he put a cape on, and no one taught him to do this. He put the cape on and had the superhero stance. He stood upright. His back like got all upright. And I was like, and we saw him run way faster. And I've heard that there actually is a study that they say if you're thinking about your superhero, your grip actually gets stronger. Like it's like squeeze as hard as you possibly can. Yeah, you can measure that. And then they show you a picture of Batman or something, and it's like your grip gets tighter. Yeah. So there's something about imagination that's very real, that like kids need an outlet to dress up and be silly. But I know people who are like, if you're a believer, you should not dress up on Halloween because that's participating in it. And I may have agreed with that in the past, but now I'm like, no, man, kids love to dress up. Right. And not everything has to be the devil. Right. And, I'm trying to, what's the scripture where Paul says like, to the pure, all things are pure. But there's also about it's Corinthians, but it's essentially just about like how when he talks about, I'm sorry, I'm struggling here, eating meat sacrificed to idols. He said, like, we know that nothing in and of itself is evil.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no evil day. Every day is the Lord that every day is the day the Lord has made.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything I choose to eat is blessed, you know? So that, I think that's kind of the way I see it now. I still don't like it. I still will not participate in Halloween, but I'm also like, if my kids want to dress up. We're just not going to go trick-or-treating, you know? I think that's my thing. And it has more to do with a personal feeling than it has to do with like the history of Halloween.
Yeah.
There is something though that does prick at my conscience. That's like, you're going door to door saying trick or treat. That's not a good tradition. That's like, when I think about that, I'm kind of like, that's totally like a pagan thing. I think everything Halloween is a pagan thing.
Yeah.
But I can also just be like, I like Winger's take on this, and his take was this. We can hit some of the major points, but one of his takes on this was like, this is a time he doesn't go out trick-or-treating, so I agree with him on that. But he's also saying people are coming to your house expecting something from you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a Christian, you give them Christ.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't have to go to their house and annoy them. They're coming to me. Mm-hmm. So he does the gospel tract thing, and I think I have a hard time with tracts. Yeah, I just don't like tracts. Right. But he'll just say, hey, how you doing? I'm Mike. You guys live around here. Get to know people. Mm-hmm. And like, so that's the difference about the way that I was raised. And again, I'm trying to protect my family, my mom, everyone. Okay. I respect the heck out of them for teaching me all these things. Yeah. I think it's just, it was always like, turn the lights out. We don't celebrate this. You know, mm-hmm. People would knock at the door and we would like hide. Like seriously, like this almost sounds like satire.
No, because
that's what we would do.
Yeah, that's what we would do too. I mean, we would, but and the weird thing is we would go to other people's houses and do that, like our friends' houses and do that. I'm like, at the time I was like, I didn't think about it, but thinking about it now, it's like, why would we go to people's houses and turn off the lights and then hide together? Yeah. So yeah. Anyways, sorry, go ahead.
No, but so that was the idea of it's like, this day is bad. We are not going to participate. Mm-hmm. Whereas now I'm kind of like, dude, I am a child of the light. I'm a child of the King. I have no reason to be afraid of this. Mm-hmm. And not even afraid. I have no reason to be so condemning of people who don't see, we're not born again. Okay. So it's like the eyes of their understanding are blinded. So why would I throw a rock at their head and be like, well, you shouldn't be blind. Man, it's my compassion. Yeah. It's my compassion that's like, dude, come to my house. Hey, how are you? You're gonna, if you're gonna meet me, you're gonna get Jesus.
Right. You know? Yeah, I mean, that's like Jesus citing Isaiah, and then you can have Paul cites Isaiah about leading the captives out of the dungeon and giving the blind sight.
Yeah. I got you.
And you can't do that if you're hiding in your house.
Can't do that if you're hiding or if you're condemning everybody.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
And so I think that's where I'm at. It sounds funny because I just went on this long rant about how I don't celebrate, peel away all the tradition and at its root is like paganism and evil. And I don't like it. But at the same time, I'm also I'm not intimidated by any of this stuff. I'm not intimidated by traditions of the world. Mm-hmm. You know, there is no day that's evil. There is no kids come to my house. And here's the thing. I know people would probably be upset that we give candy. Now where we're at now, our driveway is long. So if some kids walk all the way down our driveway and into my house, like, you should get a full size candy bar. Cause that's a walk. The next neighbors, you know, so no one comes to our house. Uh-huh. But when we lived in that townhouse, we had trick-or-treaters come, and Cooper was like super excited to give them candy. Mm-hmm. And we were just like, you know, we didn't like witness to them or anything like that, but I want to get to know people. I want to get to know my neighbors. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to be the guy who's like, oh yeah, his light was on, and I knocked on the door and said trick-or-treat, and he shut the light off. Mm-hmm. You know, and then I saw him the next Sunday, dressed to the nines going to church. So he probably thinks I'm evil. I'd rather them be like, oh yeah, that's that guy who gave us candy who was like super nice. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, he goes to church. Are they more inclined to hear you if you're just kind and nice and not intimidated and not condemning, yes, they will hear you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that's the thing about Jesus, is that he was so relational. And I as much as I love and respect the people who taught me all of these things about spiritualism and about Halloween that I had mentioned earlier, as much as I respect them, I'm like, but you can hold those thoughts and still be relational and still be kind and not be intimidated by any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like as soon as you really accept all of that, all of the understanding of the devil being real and all of that, what the tendency is to just be super harsh and condemning and like, you're in these parameters. We're going to box you in these parameters. You cannot sell if they say magic, run away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if this has anything, you need to stay away from it. And that's not the way I am anymore.
Right.
You know, I'm not open to it. I still know what's behind it, but I also know I have authority over it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with, well, let's just, for myself, let me just say this for myself,
Mm-hmm.
is like, once I learned that holiness matters more inwardly rather than, you know, this outward appearance of holiness.
Yeah.
Brother, that's when a lot of things changed. And you know, the stuff that we're talking about tonight is exactly one of those things that changed. I'm like, you know, if we're truly holy, living holy lives, we don't need to be living in fear. I don't want to be a separatist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was the thing with the late 70s and 80s and then early 90s, is that a lot of Christians were kind of like living this separatist life, you know, where they had to, you know, no card games on Saturday night, wear pants, women wear dresses that go, and skirts go all the way to your ankles. What don't watch Fantasia, what have you.
Yeah.
Is like, I felt that was a lot of outward holiness stuff.
Sure.
And I think that came from a real, genuine concern of to be in the world, but not like of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But you really, at that time, did not have a good, I don't think there was a good teaching on what holiness, what it is in the New Testament. And like,
you're saying being taught in the 70s or whatever?
Like, yes. And
okay, gotcha.
Let's just say throughout the 20th century, I don't think there was good teachings on what holiness is.
Mm-hmm.
I think it got very, you know,
like works driven.
Yeah. In a weird way, even though we say, you know, works can't save you. I felt like it was, if I'm just going off memory and some of the things that I've read from that era, it, you know, was very legalistic, works,
right? And that's
driven. Yeah, legalistic. Legalism, yeah. So holiness was this legalistic thing, rather than, you know, this inward, you know, identity driven.
Yes.
Identity driven concept or reality or whatever you want to call it, where, you know, if you're in Christ, you're holy. Christ's blood has made you holy. The Holy Spirit dwells inside you. It's transformational. It's going to change you from within and go out. So yeah, you're going to look differently sometimes.
Yeah,
you're going to talk. Yeah. You're going to do things that are different. Maybe you won't celebrate Halloween, whatever. Yeah. But that doesn't come because you have adopted a legal code. Mm-hmm. It's because, you know, God's law is written on your heart. Mm-hmm. And when you're obedient to God, when you, Galatians 5:25, when you keep in step with the Spirit, okay, you're led by the Spirit to live differently than the world.
Yes.
And
this is such a big conversation.
It is.
So and, good, dude.
But when legalism kind of, not kind of, but it perverts that.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
It actually it does the reverse of what it should do.
Uh-huh.
And I think that what you just said, that is always God's best, is to do it inwardly, and that affects you outwardly.
Yeah.
That's always his thing. Like Abraham believed in his heart, and then it was accounted to him for righteousness.
Yeah.
So like it has to come from a place of the heart, and then it should affect your outward being. And so this is a tricky thing to even talk about, because it's like there should, okay, if you are born again and if you are growing in Christ, we should be able to see something in your life. There should be some sort of like mile marker that we can look at and see, oh, he used to talk this way, and you can tell something has changed about him.
Right.
Or whatever, fill in the blank. So I think there should be something that we can look at and see growth. But what the trap is that like when you're born again, people expect you to be totally good, like right then. And spiritually, that's true. But sometimes it takes a bit to work it out.
Right. Yes.
And so the tendency is to say, well, I'm a Christian, so I don't A, B, C, I don't do any of these things. I don't watch R-rated movies. I don't gamble. I don't smoke. I don't drink. And then eventually it becomes such a legalistic thing that it's like, okay, it's not, I shouldn't, it's, I don't do any of these things. That's how I know I'm a Christian. Right. That's the opposite. No, if it's not birthed from a place of conviction, it's not real. And it probably is legalism.
Yeah.
Even if some of those legal parameters keep you in a good place, especially if you're someone like me who I had to quit drinking. It's one of the reasons why I don't drink now. As much as I loved beer, I loved wine, I loved 7 and 7s, man.
Yes.
Tear up some 7 and 7s.
Okay.
So I went to a beer tasting one time, and it was like top-notch beer. They had like 4 different tables. One of them was like IPAs. One of them was kind of like a lower class thing. And on the highest end, get this, it was like the champagne of beer. And they gave me a menu where you could take notes and stuff. And one of these, it was a 22-ounce bottle, and it was like $65 for a 22-ounce bottle.
Wow. And
everything that I tasted was such a high percentage. They were pouring these little bits, it's classy. It wasn't like I was at a bar. It was a classy joint. I was drunk by the time I left, and I could hold my alcohol very well at that time, but it was so high. I just went around tasting and tasting and tasting that I was like slurring when I left. I was like, oh my goodness, this stuff is potent. So I say that to say that I didn't just get wasted all the time. I started to develop a good palate. But because of my tendency, I knew I really struggled with self-control in that area. So as legalistic as it sounded, it was like, Tim, you can't drink.
Yeah.
You don't need to be hanging out with people who drink. You don't need to be around friends like that. And I had to set those legal, people would have saw that and said, well, hey, that's legalism, Tim. You're free from that. And I'd say, no, I need to be bound right now. I need to bind myself in grace and stay away from it. And I did.
Yeah. You need you'll need guardrails for sure.
Guardrails. That's a good
okay.
Word.
So, and that's the thing about conviction. Okay. And I don't know how some people are going to feel about this, but I think God will convict some people of some things, but not for other people. So, example, you had your example there. Another example is a Pentecostal. I read God convicted her to not drink tea, sweet tea or whatever, because it made her neurotic.
Okay,
but she still served her guests iced tea. And they asked her, well, if God convicted you, if you're not drinking sweet tea, why are you serving it? And she's like, well, God convicted me of this, but that doesn't mean my conviction should be yours.
Right, correct.
And so, I mean, you've got to be discerning with that.
And there are some things that are non-negotiable.
Right. Yes.
If you're committing adultery,
yeah.
If you're not convicted, then something's very wrong with you.
Right. So
there's some clear parameters.
There are. Yeah. You need wisdom, but with the smaller things, with that, you need guardrails, and you that can be her guardrail. that made her neurotic.
Mm-hmm.
For Pentecostals, smoking, they said it was it made you neurotic, so don't smoke.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Little did they know that they were right.
Mm-hmm.
But
it should be birthed from a place of your own heart.
It should be, yeah.
Okay, so that brings me to this point. And actually, let me say this last point about drinking. What's funny about it now is that like I have like tasted a drink of like somebody else's drink. They were telling me I was recently in Colorado, and I told my wife this, so I'm not hiding anything. This guy had this IPA, this India Pale Ale. For those of you who don't know, it's like a really hoppy type of beer. It's strong, man. It's a big punch in the face. Have you ever had an IPA?
Yeah.
I used to. They're not for the faint of heart.
I don't like them.
Most people don't. And you can't drink a lot of them. It's really just kind of for taste. But in any case, he was like, this is really good. You should try it. And nothing in me was like, do not do that. I was like, I'll try it. And so I took a drink of it, and it just everything is a reminder. I've lost my taste for alcohol.
Yeah.
I don't like wine. I don't like I don't like beer. I don't like any of it. But what my conviction is that every time I feel like, well, we're all guys, we're all hanging out, you know, it's not a big deal. I'm not driving or anything like that. I'm not getting drunk. I'll just have a drink. Every single time I have done that, I've been in the middle of drinking it and been like, I shouldn't have done this.
Right.
And I cannot for the life of me explain why I feel that way. I just know for me, it's a no-no.
Right.
It's a no-no.
Yeah.
And I'm not putting that on anybody else. I'm actually a little bit jealous. People can drink because I'm like, I used to love beer.
Okay. So that's actually good. And we can bring that back to Halloween. And Mike Winger, he brought up a great point, is that people use Halloween as a great excuse to be carnal. Okay, so well, you know, so they're at a party, a Halloween party, and things are getting raucous, or you know, they're like, well, you know, it's Halloween, it's just this one day, and then they do something that they shouldn't do, that wouldn't be okay any other day of the year,
right?
But you know, they're here at this Halloween party, and so it's okay. It's just this one day, and that's kind of. You know, that happens with toga parties too, but
sure. Sounds like you have some
from experience. But yeah, with Halloween, like Halloween is very carnal holiday.
Yeah.
If you want to, you can't even call holiday is a derivative of holy day, so I wouldn't even call Halloween. I'm getting piously woke here. I can't call Halloween a holiday because that's my pious wokeism in there. But because it's you've got the spirituality side, and of course, you know, the carnal fleshly side is going to coincide with that, because it's just sin. All of it is sinful, right? So you know, where I say this in my book. Where one sin operates, another sin is going to operate alongside.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Good point.
And you know, you've got these Halloween costumes out there that are no better than lingerie. And you know, when you get costumes like it, and this goes for guys and girls. I don't want to single out women. Okay, I've seen
slutty guy costumes.
I've seen them. You go to Salem during Halloween.
Oh, dude, I don't doubt it. Especially not now.
Okay,
especially not in this day and age. It's just a funny concept,
right?
Like, yuck.
But when you mix that with alcohol and just like the spirit of Halloween, bro, that's toxic for your soul.
It has become. That's a great point for your soul. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. And we're talking about conviction, about how even if it doesn't seem like it's outwardly sinful, if you really do have a check, you need to go with that check.
Yeah.
You know, because if you don't, you can override it. It does not mean you're going to hell. It does not mean you're now out of Christ. It does not mean you have to get that sin under the blood. I'm not even saying it's a sin. But what I'm saying is it's not good for your soul. That's not good.
And the worst thing that happens with if you follow that check is that you maybe look silly in the eyes of others.
Right.
But the best thing that happens is that you're obedient to God.
Oh man, you please God, and that's it. What's more important to you? Do you just desperately don't want to look stupid? I understand that feeling, but that's not. I say I understand it, but that's weak.
Right.
We should be so consumed about like with what I want to please God. That has to be the main thing. And that's a good point when you say that, because Halloween has become. I don't remember it being so sexualized. As a kid.
I don't know. I don't remember either, but I was also a kid.
But then again, Friday the 13th is all about teenagers doing it in the woods and then getting murdered.
That's true.
So it's
right.
Okay. So it probably, but it just seems like it's so much more now. Now there's this giant worship of witches.
Yeah.
And witchcraft. I think that's kind of bringing me to my next point.
Because they've been sexualized.
Witches have been sexualized.
Yeah. Wicca, witches, everything's, and like that might.
Or who's that?
That might sound
Elvira?
like. Yeah, there's Elvira. My older brother actually saw that movie in the theaters. But anyways,
wasn't following his check.
No, he was another guy that did what he wanted. Like that's because it's taboo. Okay. So witchcraft, Wicca is definitely taboo for Christians. And then, sexuality you can make an argument, was for a time a big taboo in the church. So, both of those things, kind of mesh together in like, I was attracted to that stuff too. Like I'm a red-blooded human male. So
yeah. Okay. Go ahead, because I want to say what you're saying, but I want to transition a little bit. So finish what you're saying.
And all of that stuff was highlighted on Halloween, and it still is.
It still is, and maybe more so.
Yeah, probably.
I feel like it is. Like before we hit record, I was just telling Tim that there's a movie out now that's like so gory, that's so unbelievably gory. It's making audiences like en masse throw up in the theater, pass out, have to call ambulances, turn white. It's like someone said like person behind me ran to the bathroom, and then he was in the bathroom and heard like 5 people throwing up in the stall because they watched the movie. It's like there is such a fascination with like the demonic. And I know I've heard people saw this like with The Exorcist. So my pastor said he had to do some serious like demonic training and some serious deliverance ministry after that movie came out. And okay, so this is what I heard from my pastor, and I've heard this from many pastors. When that movie came out, there was like possession, like crazy amounts of like actual possession from people watching it. I'm not talking about Christians, but there probably was that too. But that and Rosemary's Baby. I've not seen either of those movies. There was a point in my life where I was not living right, and that's when I watched all my horror movies.
Yeah.
I got my fix in. And even when it was like, I don't know if you've experienced this before, where it's like, hey, I'm not living right. I can do whatever I want. I'm going to just take it all in. You know? I'm going to do all the drugs, all the alcohol. I'm going to do everything. I did that. And I was like, even after all that, I was like, what's the fascination with horror? This makes me feel sick.
Right.
Like most things about horror is disgusting. It's like torture porn, or it's overly sexualized and stupid. It's like, where can we put 2 people, they can have sex and then get murdered?
Yeah.
And it's like, this is what you guys like? Like, what's the fascination here? I didn't ever understand it. But there is something really, really dark about Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist. And even when I wasn't living right, I was like, I'm not watching that stuff.
Right.
Because that is like really demonic.
Yeah.
Really pushing on the edges. Here's the funny thing. I heard a podcast recently that was not a Christian podcast, and they were talking about demonic possession while people were watching that movie. And they were talking about how it's a cultural revolution. Those movies, what they did. So it's interesting hearing it from the worldly perspective, that they were saying some really dark stuff happened when that movie came out. Yeah. And those 2 movies came out.
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah, I mean, especially with Rosemary's Baby, that's the first time like where I heard Christians and non-Christians say like this movie is messed up.
Mhm.
Like there's some seriously weird about this movie.
Mhm.
And with The Exorcist, I swore to myself I'd never watch it. Then I watched it and I slept with the lights on all night.
Oh, I bet.
Because it was like, yeah, everything that you said.
Yeah.
So
that's what I mean. Like, even though I'm talking about authority and all that, I know that that's real, and I'm not going to watch it.
Right. Why engage with it if you don't have to?
That's the thing. Yeah.
So, and all of this stuff, like Halloween is the time where it gets highlighted.
Yeah.
And
I was going to make a comment unless you're going to say something.
No, go ahead, please.
I want to keep talking about the idea of movies that are coming out right now and how there's such an obsession. Mm-hmm. It's not new because we just referenced Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist. But do you remember the movie Paranormal Activity?
I do.
So that was a fake found footage movie the Blair Witch, except apparently done way better. And I've never watched it, obviously, but I heard that people were. One of my brothers told me this. He said that like there was like people were feeling things in the theaters watching that movie. Mm-hmm. They would feel things grab them, and they would look down. There was nothing there.
Right.
And then as soon as the people who worked with my brother heard that, they were like, "Really? I got to watch that movie." And he was like, "What is wrong with you, you sicko? Like, why do you want to feel a demon grab you?" That's literally what this guy said. Mm-hmm. So there is a fascination with the supernatural, and so much of it is so demonic. And if it wasn't disgusting and reprehensible, it's almost comical to me because they just keep pushing the limits. I remember, I think it was 2009, a horror movie came out called Drag Me to Hell.
Yes, I remember.
And I was just like, I heard that was actually a really scary movie, but I was like, how are you just, it almost sounds like you're just thinking of like, what's the worst thing that we can say, you know? And I could throw out a couple anecdotes about like I don't know all the bad things that you could say to try to draw people, but it's just like you could make a movie called Rape Me When I'm Dead, and everyone would be like, oh, I want to watch that movie. The demon is raping people, and I'm like what? You guys are messed up. And I'm seeing this like infusion lately of horror movies. Like I know there's a production company called Blumhouse or Blumhouse. Yep. That's all they do is horror, and everyone just keeps pushing that limit and pushing that limit. And you want to talk about how earlier we felt like we were middle-aged men talking about Metamucil. This made me feel like a middle-aged man. My kids were playing. We have Xfinity, so we get all this free services and stuff, and they were playing these games like not they didn't search satanic video games to play for free. They just said like free games, and a lot of them were like totally built for young kids. And every time they picked a new game, there was an advertisement. But it just so happened that every single advertisement was like the most demonic movie coming out right now.
Oh,
I can't remember what it's called. It was about like a nun, and it was like all about demon possession.
Yeah, The Nun.
Is that what it is?
I think it's just called The Nun.
There's a series called The Nun, but this is something different. But I think so. And it's
all part of the same universe,
probably. But it makes me sick, and I was so mad. I was so mad. I felt like an old man because I went on the website and left him a review. That I was like, my 5-year-old is playing like unicorns jumping through rings, and if he wants to play another game of like teddy bears hugging each other, he has to watch this demonic conjuring video. Are you sick? Are you sick? You are disgusting. Like, this is me, like as a dad and a protective dad, furious at how sick the world has become. That it's not just like you were talking about, like limiting the creativity and imagination and all that. This is well beyond that. This is like, we are into some really sick demonic stuff and sexualized stuff. Yeah. And we want your kids to be into it too. So yeah, you can play unicorn hug each other, but you're going to watch this woman be demon possessed. That's terrifying. And so as much as I want to say, yeah, we have authority over that, don't be afraid of that, I had to tell them, guys, close your eyes. This is going to give you nightmares.
Right, yeah. I mean,
and I'm like, you sick. What are you trying? You're trying to give kids nightmares.
Right, yeah.
Yuck. There's something demonic there, man.
I mean, I agree with you. I would just, as a dad and as a Christian, I would, they're not ready at a certain, I don't know if anybody
I'm not ready.
Right. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, I'm not sure anybody should be ready for that kind of stuff. Especially at that young age. They're still trying to figure out how to write and read.
Right.
The flip, are you going to show them a horror movie ad for?
Right.
So, and especially when their imaginations are super active in the first place. I mean, like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Why are you trying to pervert everything?
So I think that's kind of why I feel so strongly about Halloween. When I hear believers talk to me and make it seem like, oh, you're one of those Pentecostal holiness with the beehive haircut, like that. Oh, geez, Tim, this is for the kids.
You're Reverend Lovejoy's wife.
Yes. Oh, and they got that children. I hear that, and I hear like this, like, oh, here we go. And then here's the thing. I go to Walmart, not Spirit Halloween, not whatever, demented face come in here and will terrify you store, Walmart.
Yeah.
And I go in the Halloween section, and it's like, there's like, cowboy, you can dress as Woody or Buzz Lightyear. Yay. And also, here's this demented demonic thing. And I'm like, that's a kid's costume.
Yes.
Wait a minute. What? I thought this was for the kids. That's for the kids? Yeah. And so I feel like there is like I don't know what to call it. It's almost like a willful ignorance to say, what they're really saying in my mind is, I want to celebrate this holiday. It's fine. I don't have a problem with it, but we're going to overlook all this other stuff. And I look at it and say, I think it's all connected. I'm not saying the bumblebee is demonic, but I am saying, like, should there be, you made lots of great points, but what I would say to the believer who may be just hearing this and wondering this, the main thing I would take away from this is, like, you need to pray about where your convictions are about this.
Absolutely.
You need, and if you're just like, oh, it's fine. Watch horror movies, go to keggers, the sexy witch, sexy pumpkin, whatever. It's all good. It doesn't matter. In South America, when they communicate with the dead, that's fine too. I'm like, seriously, I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't think you're a Christian.
Okay.
That's where I'm at. I'm not, I mean this like genuinely. I don't think that if you celebrate Halloween, you're not a Christian. But I'm saying, if you have zero conviction about any of this, something's wrong with you. You are not paying attention. Or you're just so blind spiritually and you've been so influenced by the world, you're dead to the Spirit of God. Because if you're listening to the Spirit of God, he is not okay with you going to a kegger and getting wasted and hooking up with some sexy witch, Yeah. And it seems crazy to me that I have to say that in this time, Yeah. I feel like 20 years ago, that was like, yeah, I know. But for some reason, I feel like a lot of Christians as a whole, don't even see it that way anymore. Like nothing is wrong, So bringing it back to scriptures is kind of what Paul said when he talks about everything is permissible, but not everything is good for you,
right?
So you need to figure out what's good for you. But he also said, celebrate this freedom that I was talking about. Christ has made us free, so I'm not really intimidated by things. But he also said, don't let that freedom be used as a cloak for a vice.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the points that Mike Winger made. I loved, because you have to know, like, are you really just trying to justify this because you want to get wasted? Or you're really into the, I don't know, the demonic stuff? Are you really just kind of saying, nothing to see here? Are you willingly overlooking things? So the point in a lot of this conversation is, like, we need to be in tune with the Holy Spirit. And what is a big deal to me might not be a big deal to you. And it seems like that's the case. But like I said, you're making a lot of really good points for why you don't really have a problem with it. And that doesn't matter what I think about it. I was going to say I understand, but the point is, like, it doesn't matter what I think about it. What matters is that, like, am I following what the Holy Spirit's showing me? Right. Yeah. So.
And it goes to that. As I get older, there are things that I wasn't concerned with as, a younger Christian that I am concerned with now. Like I am one of the big things, and maybe this is because I have a daughter, is one of the things that I have a big concern with is with what shows my daughter watches and how the girls dress.
Yeah.
Because there was a show that my daughter was watching that was on Nickelodeon, and one day I walked in and there were, they were two high schoolers and they were just like making out in the school hallway, and I'm like, you're way too young to see a show that just does this nonchalantly.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the girls were, I'm gonna sound like such a prude, but I don't care.
No, go for
it. A lot of the girls were, wearing shirts that were like showing off their midsection and things like that. And I'm just like, that bothers me, because I don't want my daughter to think that she has to show off her body in order for her to be socially accepted.
Right.
Okay. It's not her body that makes her likable, and like, I want her to dress modestly, have a good self-esteem that doesn't come from the way that she looks.
Right.
And so I think, that is alongside the spiritual crap that is associated with Halloween.
Yeah.
So I would say that there are convictions that I have that, a lot of Christians do, and you got to throw these labels around like conservative or whatever. I just think that, if you are a Christian, these things should concern you. And I understand, and I understand. I trust me, I understand where a lot of people are coming from with the Halloween stuff. Like, there is a lot of the comic book stuff that's coming out. They're getting darker with the witchcraft. Like, I saw Doctor Strange 2, and in that he possesses his own corpse from another. This is so it deals with the multiverse. So this is a different Doctor Strange, but he possesses that dead Doctor Strange in order to fight off spirits of death or something. So it's very, very lot of necromancy in that. And I'm like, why are we watching this movie?
Well,
I don't think it's on Disney Plus, and I'm like, I'm blocking that movie.
Yeah.
Because that's
good to know.
There's a point where you just gotta call evil for what it is.
Yeah.
It's evil.
Yeah.
And, we're not gonna engage with that. We're not gonna like fret over it or anything, but we're not going to engage with it if we don't have to.
Exactly.
So,
and I can think of two examples when it comes to that, both in the Disney vein. One of them was from early 2000s, the movie The Prince and the Frog. Still never seen it.
Yeah.
But did I just say that? Still never seen it? Is that proper grammar?
It doesn't
never
matter.
Saw it. I say that because I tease people because people say seen it all the time. Like, oh, I've seen that. And I'm like, no, you saw it. Anyways. Can you tell I'm getting older? Little these darn kids. So what I heard about that movie, if you just watch it, I bet it's so underlying. It's such a subtle thing. You wouldn't even notice it. But I heard that the Disney writers or creators consulted a voodoo doctor, a witch doctor, and wanted to know, how do you properly conduct a seance? Because we have a scene where the person is doing some sort of voodoo. And so they contacted them and they were a part of the process of making that. So the seance that you see in that was advised by a voodoo witch doctor.
I believe that only because like Disney gets hit hard for like shallow representation of cultures and stuff. So I'm sure they would have seen that as like a cultural thing versus
Mhm.
like a spiritual thing.
Right.
So,
Oh, and I would say this:
uh-huh.
they're not born, they're not
Right.
Christians.
Right,
So,
right, right.
like you said,
Uh-huh.
I understand why they would do that,
Mhm.
but I'm also like, if you think it's nonsense,
Mhm.
then it's all make believe anyway.
Yes.
But it's all, but it's also like you contacted this voodoo person,
Uh-huh.
so he knows it's real, though.
Okay, good.
You
Yes.
know, that's
Uh-huh.
kind of like,
Good
but
point.
you either think he's a fool or you know
Uh-huh.
there's something there, and you're just like,
Right.
well, it's magic, sure.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna throw everything under the umbrella of magic.
Uh-huh.
And so when I saw that, I was like, hey, y'all are sick. I'm not watching that. And so I didn't
Mhm.
watch it. You know, I was older then. It's not like I was
Yeah.
running to the theaters at 18 to watch that movie. But and the next one was in Encanto.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
Great movie.
Uh-huh.
But there's that part where like the guy who's like a seer who has like the vision,
Yes.
he like puts the sand in a circle around him
Uh-huh.
and like his eyes turn green and he
Uh-huh.
conjures up this image. And I'm like, while we were watching it, I was like, Aaron, we got to turn this off.
Mhm.
Like, this is not good. It was over very quickly, but I was still like nothing is safe anymore.
Uh-huh.
And like, once again, I don't fear it. And I know we have authority, but I'm not going to invite that garbage into my house. My house is a sanctuary. We honor God here, right? So we don't do it to the best of our ability. Of course, I guess what I mean by that is to say like sometimes like we'll watch something and be like, oh, we shouldn't watch that.
Right.
It's not
yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
this place is unholy. We now have to,
We have
power
to
of
cleanse
Christ
it.
compels
Yeah, yeah.
you. We don't have to do any of that. But I mean, why flirt with that line if you know it's real?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of what I want to challenge a lot of believers. Like, hey, there's a lot of demonic stuff here. There's a lot of sexual, sensual things here in Halloween. There's a lot of that. And I see enough of it. And I'm like, I want nothing to do with this holiday.
Mm-hmm.
I want nothing to do with it. Like, it just seems like it's just so much more evil than I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Now I could just be looking through rose-colored glasses, but I don't know, man. I'm seeing a whole new level of evil here.
Yeah.
In our culture today.
I mean, we have moved the goalposts quite far from to sound middle age again. I texted my wife.
Middle age. It's all.
I texted my wife the other day. I'm like, I prefer the America of my youth. Then she texted back, "Oh my gosh, you're 60 years old." But
yeah.
But anyways.
Yeah.
But anyways, the thing is like, either we've just matured and we're seeing something that's always been there, or yeah, we're moving. You know, the country is the entertainment industry is embracing more of this evil crap in the guise of being acceptance or something like
tolerance.
That. Tolerance. Yes, thank you.
And wanting to look cool too.
Yeah,
wanting to like, no. I'm not Reverend Lovejoy's wife.
Yeah, you're
I'm super cool.
The BuzzFeed Christian. I'm a Christian, but this or that.
So, right, exactly. Yeah. I'm a Christian and I do all of these terrible things. And I'm like, why are you writing this article if there's no problem?
There's a good satire video about that by the YouTube creator Lutheran Satire, and he does it with puppets, with like Muppet looking guys.
Yeah.
It's great. Maybe I'll link that too.
Yeah. I'm conflicted because I'm like, that's a great place to end talking about that. But I'm also like, I want to touch on the Hell House idea. But like I would say I wanted to end on a good note because I went to a Hell House back in Rockford like a bunch of times from the same First Assembly of God thing. So it was an outreach. He's texting me late. So it was an outreach, and it was like I had the funniest experiences there. It was a blast. So I say that because it's like it's easy to point out someone else's stuff and be like, that's sinful, you need to stay away from that, but overlook your own things. So like, lest I be a hypocrite, I want to say I do get the idea that you like being spooked out. It's fun. It's fun, the thrill of being scared and going through a haunted house and all of that stuff. But I don't know where I'm at, because like I want to say these things, and I know you're tired, and I don't know if that's the place where we need to end, or if I tell some of those things and we can throw them in the middle somewhere. Yeah,
it depends on how long it is. So you could say it, and
okay, I'll do the shortest possible version. Okay,
yeah.
So like when I say that, like I do understand the idea that I like to be kind of innocently scared, and not horror. I don't like the horror genre. I don't like the fear mongering, all that stuff. A show that I love to this day, and I have to be careful because I don't watch it really, is the Twilight Zone. I love the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
I love the like the mind bending kind of creepiness. Someone is trapped in this environment, you know, like the one about the stopwatch. So it's like the guy has a stopwatch and he can stop time, and he robs banks and does all this stuff. And then at the end of the episode, the watch breaks when its time is stalled. Oh. And it's like by the end of it, you're like, oh my gosh, that's creepy.
Yeah.
He now has to live the rest of his life in it. Like that's scary now thinking about it. And that's fun to me. I'm like, that's cool. I'm going to watch, 4th of July. They always have the Twilight Zone marathon on Sci-Fi Channel. And me and my brother used to watch it all the time. And I love the Twilight Zone, you know. So to not sound like a hypocrite, like I do get that. I don't flirt with that very often. And there's usually a point where I'll hit and I'll be like, I don't need to be watching this. This is not good, because now I have to pray. And if I hit a point where I say, now I have to pray, I probably wasn't listening to the Holy Spirit. But I'm a little conflicted when it comes to the Hell House idea. Right. So it's like, I get the idea. It's about evangelism. You're using the scary concept to lead people to Jesus. Does it work? I think, yeah. I think for the most part. Does this produce lasting disciples for Jesus Christ? I don't know. But I know there's a really big one in Tulsa that I went to when I was at Rhema, when I was at Bible college with my friend. And it was good, but it did not compare to the one that Assemblies of God did.
Yes.
It was so terrifying, bro. It was so much fun. Okay, so let me give you this rundown. It was in the Boone County Fairgrounds, which only means anything to someone back home. And this real big fairground area. And there was 5 houses that you could go into for the price of one. So you pay $20. You're in this area. You can go to all of these houses. One of them, it was called the House of Horrors, was the whole thing. So it was like they had the House of Horrors, then they had the Barn of Terror, and then they had one was called Valley of Terror. Valley of Terror. I'm a scaredy cat. I don't do well with fear. Okay, so I was probably like, I don't know, probably 15 or 14, something like that. So I was rather young. And I was going with my friends from church, and we went there. We knew this was a hell house. So it was like, this is safe. This is a church environment. Okay. And the Valley of Terror, I've never been in anything so terrifying. It was, you had to go in by yourself. So part of the comfort was that you had friends with you. And a young 14-year-old Tim going in by himself was a recipe for disaster. And it was such a cool concept. It was like you go in by yourself, and then you had to do a series of challenges. Okay, so it was like one of them was, if you're afraid of the dark, they test every one of your fears. So if you're afraid of the dark, you had to put this mask on and walk through a place that kept getting tighter. All you could always feel. And it kept getting tighter and tighter. And then you had to listen for voices. If you heard voices, you had to follow the voices. So you had to go right to your fear. You know, another one was clowns. Another one was that I had to actually get in a casket. I had to get in a coffin. And once I got in, it shut over me, and I heard someone throwing dirt on top of it. So if you have any kind of fear of that, you're confronted with it. And so every time it was like a challenge was like, this explains this in the very beginning, but it's like, if you're too afraid, you can always opt out. Okay. So I'm a scaredy cat, man. I'm having a hard time. I don't have a fear of being buried alive that I know of. So I was able to do well until I hit the certain one, man. I flipped out. You walk into this room and it was like dark, foreboding, and there's like these clowns that are all laying on the ground. and some of them are like hanging from the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're, I think it's agoraphobic, maybe if you're fear of clowns.
No,
No, that's being inside, right? Agoraphobic. I can't remember what that one is. In any case, I was walking. I eventually met up with one of my friends. We weren't supposed to do this, but like he was coming out of one, and it was like we ended up running into each other. And so we were both walking, and all these clowns as you're walking, and there's like 6 doors to your right, and there's one straight ahead. And it was like, as you're walking through, it's like the lights are glitching. It's like purple, black light. It's terrifying. And as I'm walking through, I'm reaching for a door, and I pull on the knob, and it's like attached to a rope.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not real. You go to the next door, it's attached to a rope. And then in the distance, you see a clown stand up and start walking towards you really slowly. And it's like, we were like, okay, hey, it's all right. We're okay. And then I got so terrified, I ran full speed and broke down the one that was facing me. Broke down the door. I missed a bunch of challenges because I had like taken an exit and nobody kicked me out, thank God. But it was terrifying, and I loved that. It was so much fun. Here's the thing: you get to the end of it, and it's like a barn, and it's like the sign is like, "Congratulations, you completed the Valley of Terror." And we were like, "Oh my God, like I can breathe now." There was a spider one that I missed, and I don't know that I would have passed. Yeah, you had to put a tarantula on your hand.
Oh, thanks.
Anyway. So we get to the end, and then there's this couple that's fighting, and they're like going after it. You know, there's just like this man and this woman, and he's starting to scream at her, and the security guard's there trying to calm him down. And he looks over at me and my friend, and he's like, "Man, I'm sorry to do this. Can you guys just help me out with this? They're like freaking out right now." And we were like, yeah, okay. So we reluctantly start walking over there. Guy pulls out a gun, shoots his girlfriend, shoots the security guard. And I'm already like Runny McGee. I'm running through the haunted house. And so I run as fast as I can through this door to another door, break it down. And then, and my friends are sitting there watching me on a screen and like laughing.
Oh, and dang.
That was the last little completion thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they let you, they put your guard down. Then it's like, hey, you completed this. Great. And it's like, here's a couple that's fighting. And now she's dead. You know, terrifying. So there's many more that I could tell, but it's like, I am the best person in the world to go to a haunted house with because I'm such a scaredy cat. So I do understand the spookiness and like I said about the Twilight Zone, about other things like that. I say it just because Mike Winger was very much like, I don't like the idea of building this thing that looks like hell. You know, I don't want anything to do with hell. And I think that's a good heart to have. But I think if you're an evangelist and you're about reaching the lost, reach the lost.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying like no restrictions, but
right.
Part of me is like, it was so much fun. I have the greatest memories. Now, would I ever go to one now? Like there's a permanent haunted house here.
Yes. That's right. Paranoia.
Paranoia. Would I ever go? Heck no. I don't think I ever would. But I understand why people are drawn to them, you know, especially if it's safe. And confined, you know, nothing bad's going to happen here. But I'm also like, if you're a Christian, why would you go to a haunted house that's like not a hell house? That's not designed at the end to preach Jesus Christ. This is like to terrify you, and this is the world doing it. You know, so I'm kind of like, why would you do that? Yeah. I don't know if that's a non-negotiable thing, but. Anyway, yeah. Like I said, there's a ton more stories. It's getting late. There's a ton more stories I could tell, but I at least do understand some of the desire. You know. Yeah.
You know, it's a weird kind of like special feeling to get. It's like a weird thrill. It really is to get scared. Yeah. So it must be the adrenaline.
Fight or flight kicks
fight or flight. That's right. It's the adrenaline rush. So, all right. So I think we're gonna close it right there. So one thing I did want to mention is that I talked to Tim earlier in the week, and we've decided that we're just gonna do audio only from here until a determined point in the future. Only because with the audio, I'm able to clean it up a lot easier. And with the video, you usually only get like bare bones editing from me. And, you know, we want to experiment with some stuff down the line. And so until we can get a good handle on that, we're just going to do the audio, and it's a podcast anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
it's mainly audio. So deal with it.
So if you're brokenhearted that you're not going to see our beautiful faces,
right.
we're sorry. But,
and you know what's funny is I just got a light for that fireplace too to put in there. Like I got
one of those round
an
ones?
LED light just to stick in there, so it's not like a dark black hole in your fireplace. But now people won't see it, so it doesn't really matter.
Well, you never know what the future holds.
Right.
We could hire some professionals to.
Yeah,
we just got to get sponsored by Plexus.
We got to be sponsored by Plexus, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's anything else that you want to say in closing.
Drink Plexus.
Drink.
That's great.
I don't really have anything to say. I think I said it all.
Yeah, it was a really, really good conversation.
Right.
It's thoughtful. I think we landed on a great place about being led by the Holy Spirit.
Right. Yes.
That's the most important thing.
It is. Yep.
And if you celebrate Halloween, you're going to hell. So
there it is.
There it is.
Anyways, have a good autumn, a good harvest festival.
Yes.
Okay.
Have a great Hallelujah night.
Yes, that's right. And until next time, God bless and keep learning.